Department of Water and Power to begin looking at ways to really encourage residents of Los Angeles to conserve. I talked about giving incentives for people to plant water-friendly landscapes, and I also asked them to look at our rate structure to see if it was fair and equitable and people were actually paying for the water they were using. But now before us is the shortage rate structure, and I voted no on that today because I don't think we've done enough to really get people to conserve water.
Do you think that the pure monetary incentive is going to be enough? Whether it's fair or not, obviously, that's going to be debatable. But you didn't sound very convinced during the meeting, as you say you voted against the measure that would implement these shortage-year water rates.
Well, this was adopted back in 1993 when I think it was Mayor Reardon had a Blue Ribbon Commission that took a look at our water rate structure and suggested that in a time of severe water shortage, this rate would kick in that basically penalized people for not conserving. We've never used it. We've never tried it. So today, it was proposed that now's the time we should put it into place, and because of the financial penalty, it's assumed that people will use less water. I don't know if that's true or not. It's never been proven. Some people, just pay their bill, and they'll say, well, we'll continue to use the water even if it costs us a little bit more. I think there's other ways that we ought to be really encouraging people to conserve water. And I'm looking forward to us getting to the day when we're allowing people to only water once a week. There's other measures that they can do to conserve water. I just wasn't convinced that this was the best strategy at this time to get people to conserve water.
As you know, a year ago there was quite a bit of public participation in the process of dealing with DWP rates then. Enough public participation in this round of the process, for example, neighborhood councils?
Well, we were hearing that there was not. We got a lot of complaints today and last week from people in the neighborhood councils, people around the city who didn't really feel like there was enough ability for people to weigh in on this new rate structure. So I always think there's not enough outreach. I always think the public does not have enough opportunity to weigh in on the decisions that we make, particularly the neighborhood councils. There's an MOU that's formed between the Department of Water and Power and the neighborhood councils to talk about these very issues, and it didn't seem like that communication happened.
I guess the larger question is one that you just raised and one that occurred, I'm sure, just about everybody else around the horseshoe is, will the water rates actually be an effective incentive? And secondly, what else should we be doing? What if this is not effective?
Well, I think we should have tried something a year ago. I think we should have been we've got like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 of this whole strategy on how to get people to conserve water, but we should have started this a year and a half ago, and then we would have known at this point, do we still need to do more? And again, we're asking people not to water their driveways. We're asking them to cut the time of sprinklers. We're now asking people to water on 2 days a week. We're going to go at some point, I think, to 1 day a week. The majority of the water usage in Los Angeles is for landscaping. And, we've got to figure out a way to maybe incentivize people to not, have these large green lawns, all this landscaping that takes a lot of water. We also need to recycle more water. We also need to encourage people to use permeable pipes when they putting in patios and landscaping, so when the water goes into drains, it actually drips down into the water table as opposed to out on the street. So there's ways we can do it. I just don't think we've done a good enough job of really teaching people how they can save water, which will save everybody long term, not only in the city, but really in the state of California.
Of course, a week ago you were talking about hot zones and perhaps charging maybe a higher rate, but charging an actual rate for the exact amount of water the people use. I'm sure a lot of people watching Council Week in Review last week were saying, wait a minute, I thought that's what we were doing.
Well, it's not actually. Again, this Blue Ribbon panel in 1993 decided to give a break to people who lived in certain parts of the city where the temperature was higher. It gave a break to certain people who had larger lawns and who had pools. And so we actually, they don't pay at the same rate as other people. So really, other residents are subsidizing people who have large landscaping, have pools, have hotter zones. I think maybe the time has come to really look at having people pay for the water they use. We do that with electricity, we do that with gas, we do that with every other commodity. When you use it, you pay for it, and maybe it's time to look at doing that in the city of Los Angeles as well.
A few moments ago, you referred to the Blue Ribbon panel that Mayor Reardon put together, but you have also talked about creating a green Blue Ribbon Committee. What would be their task?
Well, you know, I introduced that today in the City Council. I proposed that we have a new Blue Ribbon Commission, a green Blue Ribbon Commission, that takes a look at this whole idea of our water rates, the structure, who pays what for what, and more importantly, have them look at the idea of real conservation in the City of Los Angeles, what we can be doing better, how we can educate people more, and their task, in my opinion, is to come back to the City Council and kind of make a recommendation on where we go from here with the rates and with conservation. It's 2009. We haven't taken a comprehensive look at this in over 15 years. A lot has changed in the City of Los Angeles. We've gotten, again, we've got a worse water crisis, I think, than we did then. And we have the emergence of neighborhood councils, which should play a big role as we go forward in determining some of these major issues for the residents.
To take the larger view, yes, we're in a water crisis. I think everybody agrees with you that this is the worst crisis, much worse than we had almost 20 years ago. Shouldn't we be taking the position of thinking up everything right away that might work and doing it all simultaneously, hoping that something will work?
Well, I can agree with you. I don't know why, really, we haven't just rolled out every possible way to conserve water. We're in a bad situation right now, and people are not, I think, truly understanding it. You know, some people will still brush their teeth and leave the water running. You'll still see a few people hosing down their sidewalk or their back patio. Sometimes people have leaks and they don't fix them right away. So, yeah, I think we ought to do everything we can we probably should have started with the more severe phases of this conservation, kind of work backwards to see what would work before we increase new rates on the residents.
We haven't had a chance to talk to you in the studio in quite some time. What's been going on in District 15? What's on your plate right now? What's big? What's exciting?
Well, you know, there's always exciting things happening. The Port of Los Angeles, we're always still looking at cleaning up the air. We've implemented a very successful green truck program where we're banning all pre-'89 trucks from even calling at the Port of Los Angeles. That will dramatically reduce the emissions that are in the air. Next weekend in San Pedro, we have the LA Harbor International Film Festival, where we're highlighting movies like West Side Story, and we're going to try to reach out to kids all over the city to have them come see that movie and talk about stopping the violence in their own neighborhoods. Two of the stars from that movie, Russ Tamblyn and George Chakiris, who were the leader of the Jets and the leader of the Sharks in that movie, will be there to talk to kids and try to encourage them to lead nonviolent lives. So we hope everybody who is watching this will come on down to San Pedro next weekend, next Friday and Saturday, the 24th and 25th, and take advantage of this great international film festival.
And finally, something we talk about on this program at this time every week, how's the new video link between San Pedro City Hall and downtown working out for your constituents?
Well, I think it's terrific. It's very exciting for me to see people that I know down in San Pedro in the harbor area, not have to come all the way downtown to have their voice heard, and just to go at the top of the municipal building there in San Pedro and speak live to the camera and have every single council member listen to their voice. I think it's very exciting. It's really the technology that exists that we should be using to take City Hall out to the people instead of always expecting the people to come to City Hall. It's very exciting for me to watch. And for the very first time at a major planning commission meeting last week in downtown City Hall, where we were discussing a proposed development project in San Pedro, we allowed this video conferencing to exist. First time it ever happened, so people could stay in San Pedro and tell the planning commission what they felt about this proposed project. So I think the uses are unlimited, and I think we ought to figure out ways that we can get people all over the city engaged in their government.
Sounds like a great start. District 15 Councilmember Janice Hahn, thanks for joining us on Council Week in Review.
Thanks, Jack.
There really is a water crisis here in Southern California, and we must all do what we can to conserve water. For more information on what you can do, call 1-800-DIAL-DWP. You can listen to City Council meetings as well as committee and commission meetings on the telephone by using the city's council phone system. In the downtown area, dial 213-621-CITY. In West LA, dial 310-471-CITY. For the San Pedro area, dial 310-547-CITY. And in the San Fernando Valley, dial 818-904-9450. Just follow the recorded instructions for the meetings you want to hear. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. On Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending April 17th, 2009. On behalf of Wendell Ayala and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
You know, honey, I've been thinking. You're not prepared for an earthquake. Take this antique vase your mom got you. If the big one hit, it'll be a goner. Or this clay penguin you made in 3rd grade. History. By simply strapping loose furniture to the wall and putting putty under loose items, you can prevent serious injury and damage. Nothing is safe. Even poor Uncle Petey. Get the message? Be prepared.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
City Council meeting for April 24th, 2009. We're here in the John Ferraro Council Chambers, room 340 of City Hall, where we meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Each Friday, we have special presentations on behalf of the community and important dates, as well as commemorating heroes in our midst in Los Angeles. We welcome our viewers on Channel 35, which broadcasts us live and rebroadcasts us in the evening, as well as our viewers through the internet, where we are available through our city's homepage at lacity.org. We're also available through our telephones by calling Council Phone, a service where you can listen to the audio proceedings of the City Council and our committees at 213-621-CITY. I'm Council President Eric Garcetti. A very good morning to everybody. I'm joined by my colleagues who are here pursuant to Council rules on time. Council members Gruhl, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Rosendahl, Weiss, Wesson, and Zine. That constitutes a quorum, Mr. Clerk, so let's call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruhl, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
All right, Mr. Smith moves and Mr. Parks seconds. If I can ask everybody to wrap up their conversations, and we're going to run through the agenda before our presentation, so if council members would like to avail themselves of their agendas. Shh. Thank you. We're going to run through the agenda. First items, please.
Commendatory resolution for approval.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Zine moves and Mr. Smith seconds. Without objection, those will be approved too. If we could go through the agenda.
First items on the agenda, items 1 through 6 are street lighting district ordinances, notice for public hearing. The Bureau of Street Lighting is recommending that items 1 and 2 be received and filed.
Okay, without objection, we'll receive and file 1 and 2. Let's hold 3 through 6 on the desk until we have one more member. We are still awaiting Ms. Perry and Mr. Reyes as soon as they join us. Next items, please.
Items 7 through 11 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay, colleagues, Ms. Gruhl?
For Ms. Hahn, to continue item number 9 and 10 for 1 week.
Okay, that would take us to May 1st, and that's a Van Nuys meeting? Is that all right? Okay. We'll continue that then until May 1st for items 9 and 10. 11 special for Mr. Rosendahl. That leaves us 7 and 8. Anybody wishing to call 7 or 8 special? If not, let's go ahead and please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Those 2 items are approved. Next items, please.
Items 12 through 23 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, I'll call 12, Ms. Gruhl.
Russ.
We'll call 12 special. Do we have cards on any of those items? Okay. We'll open and close the public hearings. Mr. Zine? 1-5 for Mr. Zine. And we have Ms. Ms. Hahn, is she no longer here? She was just here. Okay. Mr. Weezer?
Mr. President, can we continue on behalf of Mr. Alarcon 22
Sure.
till May 29th, please?
May 29th. Item 22 till the 29th of May without objection. So ordered. Other specials, colleagues? We're in 12 through 23. If not, let's go ahead and take the balance, please. Open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
All right, those are approved. Next item, please.
On the continuation agenda, item 24 is an item for which public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration. And I understand there's an amending motion in the works. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Sure, let's hold that on the desk then. Item 24 until we have that amending motion. It is a couple minutes before 10:15, so we can't call the roll for the special meeting. We're still awaiting Ms. Perry and Ms. Hahn. When one of them steps in, we'll be able to take up items 3 through 6. So if Ms. Hahn and Ms. Perry would please join us as soon as possible, we would appreciate it very much. In the meantime, we have on Fridays very special presentations. As I mentioned before, we'll be taking up the first of those shortly when the mayor arrives. So sit tight, and we'll begin in just a second. All right. 5 more minutes. We understand the mayor is about a few minutes away. I know Mr. Reyes is going to be co-presenting that, so we'll wait on that first one if that's all right. And Mr. Wesson has a presentation for Friday from Council District 10.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Today is a special Friday, especially for me, because what we have... Sign. Would you order, can we get the sergeants to remove Dennis Zine from the podium here? Anyway.
There are some things that are achievable in this world.
Anyway, this is my favorite day. It's Pet Adoption Friday. I have a young man named Disney. He's black and tanned. He's about 3 years old, looking for a home. We have a 100% adoption rate at the City of Los Angeles since we've been doing the pet adoption program. And I'm very sure that Disney is going to keep our streak going. Disney is a Chihuahua mix. He comes from the North Central station, and again, he's looking for a home. Anybody that would like to take Disney, look at that. Wendy Grew, where's Wendy at? Anyway, so what we're going to do, Disney's going to wait a little while in the back. So for all of the staff that's watching this on television, again, we've got Disney. This is the calmest Chihuahua that I've ever seen. Again, 3 years old. Obviously, he was well trained by his previous owners. So please, Disney, do you have anything you want to say? He said no. Anyway, thank you. And please, if you're watching this on television and you're interested in Disney, please call 888-452-7381. Again, Disney is looking for his Walt. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weston, and we appreciate all the work you do on behalf of our dog and cat adoption here in council chambers. We are still awaiting the mayor, who is expected shortly. And in the meantime, we still are waiting Ms. Hahn, and Ms. Perry will be arriving a little bit later, we've learned. But Ms. Hahn, if you can please join us again, we can take up the ordinances that were before us that we were holding on the desk. So just sit tight, and we will begin shortly, again, with another presentation. Thank you. I'd like to recognize from the 12th Council District, Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to introduce to someone that many of the council members know very closely and well for his work in the San Fernando Valley, and that's Ricky Gelb, who is also a commissioner for the City of Los Angeles. Ricky was inspired in last year's tragic crash and incident in Chatsworth in which 25 people were killed and 130 were injured in the disaster that hit our district on September 12, 2008, when a Metrolink train crashed into another train coming southbound on the track through Chatsworth. He was so inspired by what he saw that day with our firefighters and our police officers that he wanted to commemorate forever the work of those heroes on that very auspicious day, and he commissioned a special painting to be made by a painter and local artist named Karen Wallens, who is here today, to commemorate the work that was done to save lives that day and to treat the dying. And he offered to have free prints made that he's donated now to numerous charities that can be used in fundraisers to help their organizations. But he wants to present that painting in a very special way to the people of Los Angeles and the people of the 12th District. And I'm very pleased to introduce to you a man most of you know very well. I think all of you probably know somewhat at least, and that's our Commissioner, Ricky Gelb. Mr. Gelb?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the honor of being in front of the full council. My first time, I think, in my life. And I'm very honored today to introduce you to Karen Wallens, a good friend of mine and an artist that has inspired me by some of the work I've seen in her house. And when I saw the event on 9/12, I thought about her work and what I could do. And this was an item that came out of my mind, and Karen put it on canvas for me. So on behalf of myself and Karen, we'd like to present it to District 12, which is a district that had the tragedy, and I think it's a proper place to give our picture. And thank you very much for letting me speak today.
Thank you very much, Ricky. And I know that Councilwoman Gruhl would like to add her good wishes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the artist that made this magnificent painting, and tell us a little bit about the inspiration for it, Karen Wallens.
Well, it's an honor to present this to Councilman Greg Smith, and we wanted to depict the camaraderie and the working relationship between the departments of the fire department and law enforcement, and hopefully this picture, which we've kind of named Saving One Life at a Time, does just that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. We have Ms. Gruhl.
Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you. And I just wanted to briefly thank Ricky Gelb. What a wonderful civic leader he is. And he always sees an opportunity out of something to commemorate, to acknowledge, to contribute financially. Yesterday, a big supporter of the Z Awards that Mr. Zine puts on. Just an extraordinary person here in Los Angeles and a great commissioner for us. And to the artists, it's beautiful, and as we thank those first responders, and many of which also included our communities, and Mr. Smith's community particularly, it's a great way to commemorate. So I just want to say thank you very much, and thank you very much, Mr. Smith, for putting this together.
Mr. Weiss.
I want to join in what Ms. Gruhl just said about Mr. Gelb. The amazing thing about Mr. Gelb is that his entire focus is on the community. Entire focus, and you're just a relentless and cheerful lobbyist for the Valley, and I just want to thank you for that, Mr. Gelb.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you. Ricky, whenever it comes to the community of the San Fernando Valley, whether it be bowling in the community, doing good work for good people, you have been there. You've been there on the front lines. As a commissioner with the City of Los Angeles, you're concerned about the quality of life. You and your family have done so much for the communities of Los Angeles, the business community, the residential community, the charitable organizations, you name it, and Ricky Gelb and the Gelb family is there. So this thoughtful process that you came through and soliciting the artists to do, and that's the first time I've seen it, it's beautiful, really commemorates what our hardworking members of public safety do every single day. And for you to think about that and to see it completed is just another tribute to all the wonderful work you do. And yesterday you were there honoring our LAPD, our firefighters, police officers, sheriffs, highway patrol, DAs, everyone. And anytime there's an issue or a cause, Ricky Gelb is there. So congratulations once again. And the artists, beautiful, beautiful work. So congratulations to you. But Ricky, you came with the idea. And the tragedy occurred in Greg's district. I know he and Mitch Englander from his office, many people were there. Richard Alarcon, I was there along with many, many other people. And that tragedy, what's come out of it is obviously something to be remembered in a positive fashion. The hard work of our dedicated public safety personnel. So congratulations to
Zhang.
all of you, and Greg, great for putting this together today. Congratulations to you also for bringing this about and honoring and recognizing the folks behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Mr. Labange.
You're an absolute angel in the city of Angel. And to the artist, what a beautiful, beautiful piece of work that shows symbolically what happens every day in this city, and certainly came together that day on the tragedy. Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Councilman, for those kind words. I just want to say to the artist, this was a beautiful rendition that could have fit not just that tragedy on that day, but every day in this city of L.A., what our police and fire do to protect the lives of the people of this city. And it's a beautiful rendition, and we appreciate so much what you've done. And to Ricky, always your commitment to the city of L.A. In the San Fernando Valley, and to police and fire in particular. We're going to recognize this great value to this painting by having it framed. We're going to ask that it be displayed on the 3rd Street Bridge at the appropriate time during the year on one of the art displays, and then it will be permanently affixed to the wall outside my office with a plaque that we'll put under it recognizing the contribution of Mr. Gelb and the artist, Ms. Wallens, for their contribution to the city of L.A. Thank you so much for honoring our police and fire. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much again for this great honor.
Thank you, Ricky. Appreciate your great work. Next, I'd like to recognize Council Member from the 1st District, Council Member Ed Reyes, who will be welcoming the mayor to the chambers as well.
Thank you, Council President Garcetti. Colleagues, good morning. It's a great day to be here today. As a councilman of the 1st District who represents Chinatown and portions of Koreatown, we are here together with the mayor to celebrate and kick off Asian Pacific Islander American Heritage Month. Los Angeles is a city rich in its cultural diversity. Today we celebrate its diversity, its richness of the Pacific Islander community in this great city. You know, this is one of the major intersections of the great international economy. The city of Los Angeles, Southeast Asia are in a pivotal place in the world today. With the great optimism, the lessons we learn from this richness, from this diversity, will be lessons that can be taught throughout the world. In this great city, we got the largest population of Asian communities outside of their very capitals. This is what makes this city so great. We have many representatives here from throughout the world. We have the Consul Generals, and I want to welcome them, Consul representatives from the following countries: Bangladesh, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Pakistan, People's Republic of China, the Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. And we also have representatives from our following sister cities: Auckland, Taipei, Mumbai, Guangzhou, and Busan. Now today we have, let's give them a big round of applause, please. And we will be joined shortly by the mayor.
I believe he's just waiting for your announcement.
So, as we introduce the mayor, we have a mayor who understands this great diversity. He has offered his support with this great body, the council, and making sure we bring safe streets. We provide a quality of life that's reflective of this richness. I want to thank the mayor for his support and for his leadership in celebrating this great month. We give you the council and the public, our mayor, Antonio Villaraigosa.
झीलर झिलबाजा Let's give them a big hand. Our dancers from our sister city of Mumbai. I want to thank you, Council President Garcetti, for welcoming us to the Council chambers. Today, during this celebration of Asian and Pacific Islander heritage, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on what it means to be an Angelino. As Angelinos, we come from every corner of the earth. We speak more than 200 languages. We practice different religions and have many, many different customs. We're the most diverse city anywhere in the world. But we're all bound by a unifying force, one stronger than any of our differences. We share a spirit that brought us here from different lands, a spirit that keeps us here year after year, a hope that our best days lie ahead, that with imagination, hard work, perseverance, we can and will come out on top. Here it doesn't matter what your parents did. We all have the opportunity to start fresh, to make a new name for ourselves, to take a different path and find success down the road. It's been this way since a small group of settlers established a dusty pueblo along the LA River. Since the Chinese arrived after the gold rush, since the Japanese built a community here in the early 1900s, since the South Koreans immigrated in waves in the 60s and 70s. And every time the challenges seem insurmountable and the barriers to progress appear unbreakable, Angelinos aren't afraid to keep fighting, to change course when necessary, to learn from our setbacks and celebrate our triumphs, to honor our pioneer spirit, to carry us into the future, and to dream of what's possible just around the bend. Los Angeles has been a source of pride and a bastion of hope for people all around the world. As you've heard me say many times, this is the city where the world comes together. And today I'm proud to present to you three outstanding individuals who have found their way and are leaving their mark on the fabric of our city. First, I'd like to present the Spirit Award, the Spirit of Los Angeles Award, to an individual who has always challenged himself in a career that spans 3 decades. For the past 6 years, Emil Mack has served as the fire department's Chief Deputy of Administrative Operations. He is the highest appointed Asian American official at the LA Fire Department. Born in Korea, Chief Mack was adopted by an African American family and raised in the United States. After attending UCLA, a friend suggested that Emil join the LAFD, and thank goodness he did. Because 3 decades later, Chief Mack is a respected leader and a devoted public servant. He's climbed the ranks to become the second in command at the nation's second largest city fire department. He's a man who lives by the call to protect every family and serve a cause greater than his own self-interest. And because of his inspiring story and his devotion to public service, I'm proud to have Chief Mack here today representing the Spirit of Los Angeles Award. All the way to the left and then all the way to the right.
You've done this before, haven't you?
We're going to talk. Okay. Are we talking over there? Or here? Yeah. We're going to talk about that. Okay. Here? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Mayor, council members, Chief Berry, my family, friends, and co-workers, and everyone here today, all I can say is thank you. This honor is overwhelming, as you can imagine. I'm humbled, I'm blessed, and I'm honored to represent the Asian American Pacific Island community, and as the mayor said, my Korean heritage, and my African American family. The mayor said something about the spirit of LA, and he must have read my speech. The name means something very special to me because it is a spirit of this city, that a Korean orphan adopted by an African American family was raised and embraced by a community and a city so loving that I could be here and live this dream today. It's simply overwhelming. I'm proud that our city celebrates and honors the many cultures that are here and that they all flourish together and that they come together to make an extraordinary city. I'm grateful to my adoptive parents who've given me that golden second chance in life. My mom's here today, 87 and going strong. She still drives. I tell her, let me know when you're driving so I'm not driving that day. What hurts me is my father's not here. He passed many years ago, and when they were adopting me, they sent a letter to my parents saying that I was too sick to come. And my dad sent them back, said, if I'm not getting that one, I'm not getting any. So my dad is also in my heart today. My lovely wife, she's my personal hero. She stood by my side all the way, and I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for her also. All my family and friends, if I could just take a moment and just have them stand up. These are the many people that support me. And in closing, I simply want to say thank you for celebrating the diversity of Los Angeles. We are truly all living the spirit of LA. Thank you.
Well, for every spirit, there's a dream. And the Dream of Los Angeles Award is our next awardee. In these tough times for our global economy, it's crucial that the world comes together and builds bridges between nations to spur global trade, to diminish the economic stratification that plagues so many countries, and to give world citizens of different races, religions, and creeds an equal opportunity to fulfill their dreams. As President and Chief Executive Officer of East West Bancorp, Dominic Ng has established a bank that serves as a bridge between East and West. From a Los Angeles-based savings and loan with $600 million in assets, Dominic transformed East West Bancorp into a full-service commercial bank with $12.4 billion in assets and 71 locations throughout California, Texas, and Hong Kong. And knowing that with great success comes the obligation to share your blessings with those around you, Dominic has demonstrated the true meaning of civic responsibility by giving back, by taking a leadership role with the United Way of Los Angeles, by turning philanthropy and service into a central part of his daily routine. And because of his story, because his life has truly been about making dreams come true for himself and people all across this city and even around the world, I'm honored to present the Dream of Los Angeles Award to Dominic Ng.
to a silence.
Thank you. Can I say a few words?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. And it's a great honor for me to be here today. In fact, first time I ever get a chance to walk into the chamber. So I get a chance to say hello to every one of your city council members and who have worked hard for the city. And I appreciate every day of work that you've done for the city so far. Personally, in fact, it was over 30 years ago. I was just a high school student in Hong Kong. And my dream then was only one simple dream, was to come to America to attend university. My parents worked 7 days a week and worked very hard to save enough money for me to come here. And I never thought about at that time that I had an opportunity to make Los Angeles my home, let alone being the president of a bank. So it was truly fortunate for me to be able to get to this American dream for a first-generation immigrant from Hong Kong. 17 years ago, I became the president of East West Bank, and I set a new dream for myself. That is to try to make East West a very good financial institution that focuses in Chinatown, Los Angeles, and transform the bank to be a full-service bank to serve all communities. Not only just to serve all communities, but mainly to focus on being that financial bridge between East and West. And I'm very pleased that, 17 years later, I feel very comfortable that we had succeeded in terms of being that bridge, not only financially for our clients, for our customers, but also in the community. Myself and my colleagues have worked very, very hard to make sure we're not only being the financial bridge, but we're also the cultural bridge. That we worked hard to make sure that having the opportunity to live in Los Angeles, in this such a diverse community, that we will work hard to make sure that we will continue to bridge Asian Americans with mainstream Americans in LA, and also to expand that globally. So with that, I wanted to thank my colleague from East West to work with me to fulfill that dream. And again, I appreciate very much to receive the award from the mayor and also from all the city councilmen. Thank you.
Well, we've heard a lot about hope in the last year or so. And the Hope of Los Angeles Award, an award we give someone who represents the best of that hopeful spirit. Artistic expression is innate in the human spirit. It can serve as a recreation, a recreation of our immediate reality, but at its best, it's a projection of our most deeply instilled hopes, our aspirations. Tyrus Wong is still cultivating a thriving career 70 years after he began his journey as a professional artist. Tyrus has done everything from design greeting cards to serving as the lead artist on Bambi. At the age of 9, Tyrus came to the United States through the Angel Island Immigration Center, where he spent weeks in confinement, separated from his family. And yet, despite the unimaginable challenges blocking the path, despite hearing voices of doubt and cynicism all around him, Tyrus pushed forward. He worked harder and longer than anyone else. He drove himself to new heights and achieved success beyond his wildest dreams. And most importantly, he never gave up hope. Hope for a better future, hope for a brighter tomorrow, hope that this great land of opportunity, the city defined by its promise and shaped by its potential, could grant him the chance to thrive and use his talents for the greater good. And for that, we're all thankful, and I am honored to present Tyrus Wong with the Hope of Los Angeles Award. We're going to look this way. First, let's get, there we go. We're going to look this way, to the left. There we go. There you go, Taurus. Now we're going to go over there to those. You're going to look over there, see? There we go. Okay.
I wish my father was here, but for 98 years old, that's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? But anyway, I'm not much of a speaker, so I just say maybe half an hour. Can you stand? So I want to thank you very, very much for this award. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to, before I bring our last Walt Disney, the folks who have been a part of this, of acknowledging the diversity of Los Angeles in the way that we do every year with our celebrations, I'd like to have Councilmember Reyes say a few words. I don't have to tell you that Councilmember Reyes represents the Chinatown area. When he was working for then City Councilmember Mike Hernandez, also represented a part of Filipino Town and has had a long relationship with the API community, always been a voice for them here in City Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. More now than ever, we need a strong voice that reflects the great cultures we have in this great city. And to be here to share this moment with you in this world economy truly is a historic point. So I thank the mayor for his energy, his strength, but just as important is the energy and strength of this great city, a land of immigrants, a country that embraces diversity, and together I know we can make a difference for the future of our world, for our state, and indeed for our city. So I want to thank the mayor for this opportunity to speak, but more importantly my colleagues as they work together with the mayor and we move forward for the type of policies that will embrace the richness of this great city. So thank you very much.
I'd now like to bring up Andrea Gibson. You know, you hear me say this all the time, but if I haven't been in Disneyland in a while, but anytime I want to go, I find the time. But when I go, I still love that, ride. It's a Small World. And I did ever since I was a kid, and I think I did because you saw yourself there. You know, growing up in L.A., we didn't see ourselves if we were Armenian or, Chinese or Japanese or African American. You almost felt invisible early on. In schools, you never read about the contributions of our communities. And so I remember going on that ride and seeing myself and seeing the world and kind of feeling like, wow, what a great thing. And we're really appreciative to Walt Disney for their commitment to our ethnic celebrations. They recognize just how important that in this city, a city where the world comes together, where we celebrate our many religions, our ethnic heritages, but also our commonalities as Americans. It's Walt Disney who's been here steadfast promoting those legacies. Let me bring up Andrea Gibson.
Good morning. First of all, I want to thank the mayor and the council members for allowing me the opportunity to say a few words on behalf of the Walt Disney Company. It is truly an honor to join you today in recognizing the valuable contributions of the Asian Pacific Islander community to the city of Los Angeles. You truly make a difference. And I also want to congratulate our distinguished honorees that inspire us not only to be successful, but to be great. So thank you for being great at what you do and motivating us to do the same. Thank you for your time.
And now I believe that we're going to unveil, as you know, every year. And so for everybody here, please, I want you to know we don't just do a celebration on the lawn or, you know, we have a whole month of poster contest and creative writing contest and music, and we encourage cultural celebrations all throughout the month because we think it's important for all of us to be able to really connect to the many ethnic heritages in the API community. It's not just one. There are many heritages there, but also in the commonalities that we all share as Angelenos. So if the... Well, sometimes it happens like that. Just gotta go with the flow. Let's get you here.
And we know the celebration will continue outside, and we look forward very much. Ms. Hahn, do you want to say a few words while they're taking the
I
pictures?
just want to say this is a great month, and really want to congratulate all the honorees here today for making us so proud of you. And I wanted to remind everyone that the Pacific Islander Community Council is celebrating their 20th Pacific Islander Festival on Saturday, May 2nd from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. 20 years it's been in the Ken Malloy Harbor Regional Park in Harbor City, and just want to remind everybody it's a great place to come to celebrate this wonderful, diverse cultural heritage, which is so much a part of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Hahn, for your leadership there, and the Korean Friendship Bell, which is so special to all of us here as we celebrate Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And it's so special. We have a great sister city program, and I just wanted to give a shout out to all our sister cities. Busan in Korea, let's give a big hand for Busan. Guangzhou in China, big hand, Shay Shay. Jakarta, Indonesia, big hand there. Makati in the Philippines, all right, Eddie, big hand right there. Mumbai in India, big hand right there. Nagoya, Japan, our oldest, which is so important. We celebrate its 50th year this year. And Taipei in Taiwan, big hand right there. Our program is a people-to-people program, and I thank you, Mr. President, for your great support and that of the mayor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the great presentation. The festivities will continue. As the council member for Historic Filipino Town, it would be remiss of me, and I know Mr. Wesson is very captured right now, but I'd like to announce Tia Carrera, who's here as well, a great Filipino actress. Thank you for joining us, too.
Do you have the cards for this?
All right. We will hold the ordinances on the desk. We are. We can take them up now? Well, let's do it, Mr. Clerk. Ordinances on the desk, bring them up.
Yes, Mr. President, that is items 3 through 6.
All righty. 3 through 6. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Very well. Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, we're now going to recognize Council President Eric Garcetti and Pro Tem Wendy Gruhl. Mr. Labange, thank you. Mr. Labange is surrounded by photographers. He thinks he's a star today. Ed Reyes, you're the star today. All right, Mr. Labange is moving on. Mr. Garcetti is taking photos with the mayor. And we are in transit. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Garcetti, Councilmember Gruhl. Take it away, Eric.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank
We appreciate it. If I could invite the leaders from the Armenian American and Armenian communities here to join us. From the celebration of Asia Major, which we just had, we also remember the tears of Asia Minor. And we commemorate today a sad date in our world history. And it is a date that we each year come together in these city council chambers, the official chambers of the people of the city of Los Angeles, to speak truth, to repeat the often familiar phrase that's repeated, those who do not remember history are doomed to repeat it. We all remember the tragic Armenian genocide at the turn of the century, last century, in which we lost nearly half of the entire population of Armenians on this earth. This attempt to exterminate a people and their culture became a model for all subsequent genocides in the 20th century, including the Holocaust. We remember Hitler saying before he killed Jews and others, after all, who remembers the Armenians? Well, we remember the Armenians today and every day. It was repeated over and over again in Rwanda and Darfur. And during the Armenian genocide, though, nearly 2 million Armenians were expelled from their homes, only 500,000 of which survived. And those remaining were completely exiled from their homeland, where they had been for thousands of years. The tragedy of the Armenian genocide has been acknowledged by countries and international bodies around the world. More importantly, it can be personally attested to by the thousands of survivors, some of whom we have had right here in council chambers. There is no ambiguity. There is no question. This was a genocide, and it happened. Here in Los Angeles, we have the largest home of Armenians outside of Armenia. Each year, Armenians and the people of Armenian ancestry all over the world commemorate this darkest event in their collective history over 3,000 years. But it is not something they commemorate alone. They commemorate with us. With the strength of our voice, every voice that is lifted up to speak the truth counterbalances those who would still deny it. We were pleased to hear then candidate Senator Barack Obama speak about the genocide and that he would recognize it. And we do very much hope so as president, that he will continue and keep to that word to push forward, because whether it is the country of Turkey or whether it is those who are outside of Turkey, we can only go forward bravely when we admit the mistakes of the past. Today, the Los Angeles City Council joins the worldwide commemoration of the 94th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. Let us recommit the next year to learning from the mistakes of the past so that we can do everything in our power to ensure it never happens again. And from the mountain of Mount Ararat all the way here to Mount Hollywood, to the hills in Montebello today where there is commemoration, to the streets of Little Armenia and Hollywood, we mark this anniversary, we raise up our voices, and we commemorate those souls that we have lost. I'm co-presenting today with Councilmember Wendy Greuel, but I know the mayor is going to continue on with the very hard work that he has before him. We'd like to recognize the mayor and then Councilwoman Wendy Greuel to say a few words. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council President Garcetti, Council Pro Tem Greuel, for once again, as you have so many years before, bringing this issue to the light, to the Council, to the City of Los Angeles, the nation, and the world. I stand here today as an individual reaffirming my belief in an incontrovertible truth, as a leader who understands the importance of being honest about our past, and as a person who has always held fast to the notion that those who reject history are doomed to repeat it. For 94 years, many around the world have allowed diplomatic posturing to block recognition of one of the world's most tragic episodes. For 94 years, too many nations and communities have refused to call the mass murder of 1.5 million Armenians during World War I what it is, a genocide. And the recognition of this fact, the simple act of coming together, of stating clearly and unequivocally what we already know to be true, is long overdue. We owe that recognition to Gazaros Kadimian, a survivor who recently passed away, and a man who spent his entire life working to shed light on the Armenian genocide. We owe it to Orhan Pamuk, a Nobel Prize-winning novelist persecuted and jailed for daring to speak out. And we owe it to Hrant Dink, a journalist who gave his life exposing the truth, documenting the facts, reviving the silenced voices of Armenia's families. Now, our challenge is getting the entire country and the entire world on board with this campaign for justice. The purveyors of ignorance want us to ignore the evidence, the incontrovertible evidence. The propagators of fiction would rather tuck this dark chapter away and hide from the reality of history. But here in Los Angeles, in the most diverse city anywhere, in a place where respect, tolerance, and dialogue are the cornerstones of our collective success, we cannot skirt around this issue. We cannot pretend it never happened. We cannot avoid the topic because it makes some people uncomfortable or threatens their worldview. We must state in a clear voice, Armenians and non-Armenians alike, that the Armenian genocide is not a matter of debate. It is a matter of fact. It is not a question of politics. It is a question of principle. It does not belong on some docket for discussion sometime into the future. And with genocide rearing its ugly head once more in Darfur, with ethnic cleansing, mass killings, and crimes against humanity scarring our memories with each passing decade, the voices of denial must not be allowed to drown out the cries for truth. On this Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day, let us recommit ourselves to honoring the memory of those who perished with honesty. Let us rededicate ourselves to the mission of full recognition. And let us refocus our attention on our common humanity. And let us no longer betray the promise of never again. Thank you, all of you, for bringing this issue to the Council, for once again standing with a community who has always maintained that only when we acknowledge what happened can we get beyond it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Mr. President. Really stirring words today as we stand here to recognize and remember the Armenian genocide. There is no question that the Armenian genocide occurred. There is no question that the right thing to do is to recognize it. Put aside the politics and put forward what we all know is the right thing to do, which is to recognize it. We talk about the 1.5 million Armenians that were killed in that genocide. We talk about the people who have still haunting memories of what happened. We cannot close our eyes to the Armenian genocide. We cannot tell the many constituents we have here in our city, in Mr. Garcetti's district and my district, which are probably the greatest concentration of Armenians here in the city of Los Angeles. We cannot stand aside and say that we will not stand here today and tomorrow and next week and next month and next year until we are successful in getting Congress to acknowledge and the President to acknowledge Armenian genocide. We will continue to fight to do that, and the people you see around us today all have led that fight, who have never given up, who have never forgotten those people who lost their lives in the Armenian genocide. So I'm proud to stand here today as a member of the City Council, and Mr. Garcetti, I hope next year I will be here as a City Controller and standing with you as well to acknowledge and hopefully be able to say we were successful in getting Congress to recognize, as well as the rest of the world, to recognize Armenian genocide. I have today, and I don't think we're quite on the program there, but I do have students from Grant High School who are here today, and if I could ask them to stand as well, all of the students who are here from Grant High School. and our student body president, Ellen Oganessian, who is here as well, and I think we have her on the program to say a few words in a little bit. But thank you all, and thank you to each of you behind me and beside us who have really been the true leaders here in recognizing and remembering those who were killed in the genocide. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. We're honored as well to have a representative from the Republic of Armenia, our great Consul General, who is here as well, Grigor Hovhannisyan, to say a few words. Your Honorable Consul General.
Honorable members of the Los Angeles City Council, Honorable Mayor, on behalf of the government of Armenia and our fellow citizens residing in the city of Los Angeles, I'd like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to this council and by extension to hundreds of organizations, municipal, community-based, church, schools and universities across the city of Los Angeles who join us today in commemorating the greatest tragedy in our millennial history, the genocide of Armenians in the Ottoman Empire. The United States government, individual states, 42 of them by now, several cities, municipalities, have long sought the international recognition and condemnation of genocide, even before the establishment of Armenia as an independent state and the establishment of Armenian independent foreign policy agenda. Today, there's been remarkable progress in increasing international awareness of the genocide issues as tens of countries and parliaments across the globe have acknowledged and condemned the genocide. On this last day of the California-wide proclaimed Remembrance Week of Armenian Genocide, I'd like to once again thank this Council for their consistency in pursuing historical justice and offering comfort and respect to Armenian American community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Consul General, and your presence here means very much to us. A great friend and representative of our city and of the region is here as well from our California State Assembly, somebody who has spoken up and spoken out, not only as a representative of the Armenian community, but as an Armenian American himself. Please welcome the Honorable Assembly Member Paul Krikorian.
Thank you, President Garcetti, Mayor Villaraigosa, members of the Council. I'm deeply honored to be here with you today on behalf of the California State Assembly and on behalf of 500,000 Armenian Americans who make their home in California, most of whom live here in Los Angeles and the surrounding area. And I think it's important to thank the Council again for this recognition this year, because it's easy as time passes for us to forget the significance of what we do in recognizing the Armenian genocide. We talk about the politics of recognition, we talk about the history of denial, we talk about the fact that the Armenian genocide was the first genocide of the 20th century that would lead to so many other atrocities against mankind. But very often we lose sight in that discussion of what we really are talking about when we talk about a genocide. And so I'd like to share this thought with you. Remember where you were when you saw the World Trade Center collapse. And remember in the ensuing days when you saw the walls of photographs of men and women and children who were lost to their families, whose families were desperate to try to cling to some hope that these individuals were still alive and could be found someplace in the rubble. And remember how you personally felt as you saw those pictures. I know that for days I wept at those pictures. I didn't know those people. Some of them weren't Americans, some of them didn't have a direct connection to me, but I wept for them. Now I want you to think what it would be like if those almost 3,000 people who were killed in the World Trade Center that led to that feeling that you had. Imagine having that feeling again and again and again as World Trade Center tragedies happened not just that day, not just the day after that, but for the next year and a half. Every single day, 3,000 innocent deaths. Imagine how you would feel then. And then you can imagine the magnitude of the Armenian genocide. Because when 1,500,000 500,000 innocent men, women, and children perish. That is the feeling that we should have when we think of it. And so, as we talk about the politics of it, I'd like to ask you again, imagine how angry you would be in that situation, and then ask yourself another question. How would you feel if the perpetrators of those atrocities, those 500 World Trade Center tragedies, if the perpetrators of those atrocities said, it never happened? Never happened. And you know, if it did happen, it wasn't our fault. It was an accident. Bad things happen sometimes. Now, what would you do to demand justice? What would you do to make sure that that kind of tragedy never happened again? And if you can answer that question honestly, personally, truthfully, then you'll know that what we must do as a community, as a state, as a country, to do exactly that, to demand justice, to ensure that this never happens again. You know, after the Armenian genocide, and sometimes this is lost because now, with historical revisionism of the last century, people try to raise some controversy over the genocide. The truth is, the world very clearly and distinctly acknowledged what had happened in the Armenian lands of the Ottoman Empire shortly after the genocide. And the world demanded justice at that time. But justice wasn't done. It wasn't done then, and it has not been done until this day. And so, we had the Holocaust. And at the conclusion of the Holocaust, people said, never again. And then a while later, over 1 million Cambodians were slaughtered in the Khmer Rouge, and we said, never again. Short time later, in Bosnia, and in Somalia, and now in Sudan, never again. Well, with your resolution today and with our continuing demand for justice, perhaps the world can once and for all, at long last, and with truth, finally say, never again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assembly Member. His Eminence Archbishop Vache Hovsepian is here as well. He's former primate of the Western Diocese of the Armenian Church, representing His Eminence Archbishop Hovnan Derderian, who's attending today's genocide commemoration at the monument in Montebello at Bicknell Park. Also with Archbishop Hovsepian are Father Manuk Markarian of St. John's Parish, located in my district, and Deacon Matthew Ash. Your Eminence, please, if you'd say some words.
Mr. President, Mayor, today, April 24, for us, is the day of our infamy. We don't want to remember. That world community forces us to remember. I am, and all the people that are here, we are victims of that genocide. Who wants to be called victimized people? I wish they lived and our population would have been doubled and tripled. Yet, for our faith, for freedom, we became a victim of the world humanity. We will never forget it until justice is done, until the restitution is done, and this is a legacy that we will leave to our children. I hope the world will remember it, and the perpetrators will remember that will never happen again to anybody anywhere in the world. It's not pleasure to be called children of victimized people. I want to be free. My grandparents wanted to be free. They wanted to live, but because greatest gift God gave to us, gift of life, and nobody has the right to destroy that life. And we appreciate your recognition, and I hope you continue. And on this occasion, I have a short prayer to say, to remember the victims. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, gathered today, we remember the victims of the Armenian genocide of 1915 and give thanks with all heartful of gratitude to all those who observe April 24 as the day of remembrance. Our faith in God obliges us all to be true towards historical facts. The sons and daughters of the genocide survivors, we hope we uphold firm our respect not only for the lives of the victims who perished in 1915, but above all for the victims of all genocides since the first genocide of the 20th century. Today, we pledge our allegiance for the well-being of the United States of America, where democracy and freedom continues to be the most cherished values of this great nation. Almighty God, bless our leaders, grant them all wisdom and perseverance to continue the observance of April 24 as a day of remembrance of the Armenian genocide. Today, citizens of the United States of Armenian descent praise God for the gifts of this wonderful nation. Today, on this day of commemoration, we also remember the departed souls of the brave men and women of the United States Army who have fallen in defense of this nation for freedom. Today, American Armenians throughout this country look highly upon you and are filled with pride and gratitude for your vision and honorable stance in recognition of the truth. Today, as the official representatives of the Western Diocese of the Armenian Church of North America, we give thanks to God for your leadership as you work towards building a strong America which stands firm to protect those who are deprived for justice. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Thank you very much, Archbishop. The Very Reverend Father Miron Aznikian is here representing the Archbishop Musek Mardurosyan, who is also in Montebello this morning. With him is Reverend Father Ardak Demirjian, and we'd like him to say a few words. Very Reverend Father.
Honorable President of the City Hall and Council members, all over the world today, as Armenians and Armenian people and community celebrate the decease and the martyrdom of a nation, 1.5 million, under the hands of Ottoman Empire, the Turks. In this great city of Los Angeles, city of diversity and rich ethnic backgrounds, but united in high values of freedom and equal opportunities, we come to commemorate and remember our martyrs who gave their lives for the same reasons and values of freedom and human rights. On behalf of Archbishop Musek Mardirosyan, who regretfully could not be here today, we salute Council President Eric Garcetti, President Pro Tempore Wendy Creel, and all the members of the Los Angeles City Council, and offer our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to you for once again joining our community in commemorating the Armenian genocide with this special resolution. We have come here for the common cause to honor the sacrifices of our forefathers and the memory of our martyrs, and to reaffirm our commitment to attaining long overdue justice and recognition. We thank you for your staunch support over the years, and we can be certain that with our united efforts, unwavering resolve, and the strength of our voices and prayers, we will continue to make great strides and reach our goals in due time. Lord, Heavenly Father, we thank you for your unbounded love and blessings, and humble ask you to continue to guide us with your divine wisdom in fulfillment of our mission to serve for the progress of our community and nation, and the welfare of our fellow men with courage, dignity, and honor. And thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Andrew Kazarian, who is the Executive Director of the Armenian National Committee, Western Region, and Board Director Levan Baronian, who will say a few words as well. Welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Good morning. My name is Levan Baronian, and I'm a board member of the Armenian National Committee, Western Region. On behalf of my organization, and as thousands of grassroots activists and supporters, I commend the City of Los Angeles for its principled stance and unwavering dedication to the proper remembrance of the Armenian genocide. I am truly fortunate to have been born and lived my entire life in this great city's limits. Los Angeles, my home, is where my grandfather, Vahe Baronian, a survivor, orphaned by the genocide, found eventual refuge with his family, lived and died. And while I can visit my grandfather's grave at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery and pay my respects, my grandfather didn't even know if his murdered parents and siblings were ever buried. Yet today, 94 years later, Turkey is still working hard to bury the history and memory of the Armenian genocide. In Turkey, this takes the form of prosecuting anyone who calls for Turkey to stop its denial of the Armenian genocide. And far too often, it's even worse, as Turkey's ongoing denial incites its ultranationalists to intimidate, bully, and sometimes murder those who call for Turkey to face its past. And despite the fact that here in the United States, human rights and justice are core values for us American citizens, Turkey continues its attempts to bury the proper recognition of the Armenian genocide by sending its foreign agents, hiring expensive lobbyists, funneling millions of dollars to revisionist historians, and more recently, threatening to sabotage American military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is exactly why it is so important that the City of Los Angeles serves as an example of government standing up for its own citizens, standing up for what's right, and not giving in to foreign pressure and special interests, who should never have a say in what we Americans cherish, the values of universal human rights, of justice, and of freedom, irrespective of race, creed, sex, or beliefs. Justice for the Armenian genocide, the halting of the ongoing genocide in Darfur, and the prevention of any future attempts at genocide will only become a reality when the United States and its leaders, as President Barack Obama stated during his campaign, speak truthfully about the Armenian genocide and respond forcefully to all genocides. Thank you.
Yigig Kashishian is here representing the Armenian Assembly of America. We'd like him to say a few words as well.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, Council President, members of the Los Angeles City Council. On behalf of the Armenian Assembly of America, I want to thank the unwavering support and commend the City of Los Angeles for their support on the issue of the Armenian genocide. 94 years has passed, and to this day, the modern-day government of Turkey continues to deny the genocide. And as opposed to simply reconciling with these past events and moving forward, it has chosen to not only silence this debate in the halls of Congress, but also in academia. And today, as we come together as a community to pay respects, we hope that our message will reverberate across this nation and that it will give President Obama the impetus to call for U.S. recognition of a genocide that has been affirmed by scholars, over 40 U.S. states, and former President Ronald Reagan. Otherwise, the community, and I think the international community as a whole, will suffer because, as we've been seeing most recently, the current government of Turkey has now been solicited to travel to Sudan on repeated occasions to help in the cover-up of the genocidal campaign that President al-Bashir is launching in this very moment. I was very proud and honored yesterday to be invited to speak on the floor of the California State Senate on the urgency of passing a resolution which has now been introduced thanks in large part to Assemblyman Krikorian and the Assembly. And I sincerely hope that, and remain confident with the support of all of you before all of you here today, that we will prevail, we will be successful in calling upon U.S. recognition, because it's about furthering the democracy and the normalization of relations of both countries. However, normalization of relations between Armenia and Turkey will not come at the expense of denying the genocide, especially when Turkey will know that each year it can come forth and try in vain, or perhaps during that 1 year, well, quite successfully, to use the issue of genocide to silence this debate in this country. As an American of Armenian descent, I'm very proud to live in a country that values and stands up for truth and justice. And once again, I want to thank the City of Los Angeles for their unwavering support on behalf of the entire Board of Directors and members with the Armenian Assembly.
Our last two speakers are Vartan Chukmasian, who is here representing our great sister city agreement with Yerevan and Los Angeles. We are so pleased to sign in these chambers, and also to take a delegation to Yerevan, linking together the largest and the second largest cities of folks of Armenian descent in the world. So Vartan, if you'd like to come forward, please.
Honorable Mayor, Council members, Eric Garcetti and Mr. Tom Lamont. I present the Los Angeles Yerevan Sister City Association, which has been created 2-3 years ago. The sister cities are founded to go and talk to the people of the world, of the cities, directly instead of beside the government diplomatic relations. So therefore, our mission is to go and teach our American heritage to other peoples and to learn from them whatever they are doing. So therefore we want to, our mission is to build bridges between cultures of nations and between our American culture. Therefore we as Americans, we have to go and teach these people about American heritages and American beliefs. So therefore, our great country has been built on that big culture, big cultures and beliefs. So we want to thank the city that they gave us the opportunity to go to assemble this association, to go and teach our culture to other nations. Therefore, I, as a second generation of survivors of Armenian genocide, really when my dad was dying, I saw tears in his eyes, and he was telling me that, "Sonny, don't afraid, just only work. You will see that in near future, all over the world, they will recognize that tragedy which happens to our people." Therefore, now we are asking, when we see this, the world now are recognizing these facts which happened in 1915 to the Armenian people. Therefore, we want to call our officials to say the acts, to give the acts the real names, to name. When something happens, we don't want to say tragedies, but that was a genocide. So therefore, we want our officials to recognize it and say it was a genocide. It happened genocide. But the Turkish government now they are spending millions of dollars falsifying the history. But I don't think they will succeed, because always the truth will become, and we will see that our officials, they will recognize the Armenian genocide. So that for our ancestors, they will lie there and in peace. They will feel that their heirs, they did their job, what was they supposed to do. Thank you very much.
That's okay. Thank you. And I'd just like to recognize the city employees that are here who are of Armenian descent, if they would please make themselves known, and we appreciate each and every one of you. I want to thank Lynette Amirian as well from my staff for helping put this together. The schools in the district that are attending the commemoration are Shag Tikranian School and Alex Polibos School, AGBU School, which is in our sitting council president's district as well, in the 3rd council district. And Ms. Gruhl promised our student body president, so we'll give her the last word. Ellen, if you'd like to come forward to say a few words in closing. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Mr. Garcetti, we have 2 council members that wish to speak also.
Okay, great.
Thank
So
you.
we'll have Ellen, and then we'll pass it over to them.
There you go.
Come on forward.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Mr. Garcetti and Ms. Wendy Gruhl, the mayor, for all having me. My great-grandfather, Serol Temercan, was 9 years old when he saw his family be brutally massacred in front of his own eyes. He survived to tell his story, and I am his legacy, and I wish he was here today to see me. At our school, we just adopted a heart-to-heart program where we promote anti-violence, and we pick natural leaders and elected leaders as myself to do this. And these 20 kids have stopped violence at our campus of 2,500 students. And I believe if we could do that, then us as an Armenian community can one day have our Armenian genocide recognized by this country. Thank you.
Mr. Garcetti, you said something about AGBU, Monogian, and 3rd Council
Yes,
District.
absolutely.
Can those folks stand?
I think they're out in Montebello.
Montebello. I know we were all invited to Montebello, but we have to have our council meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. I listened very intently to everything that was just said. Your eminences in your prayer was heartfelt by me. But, Assemblyman, you hit the nail on the head. The genocides continue today. The Armenian genocide, every time the Armenian community comes here, I can't understand why politics gets in the way of something that was so tragic and so disgusting in the year 1915. Okay? We've got to get beyond that. It is now 2009. And you know, Assemblyman, when you said there are other genocides going on today, I am here with heavy heart. I'm a gay man. And right now in Iraq, they're rounding up my people and killing them. Right now in Iran, they're rounding up my people. Just because we're gay, we're getting killed. So the genocide of my people continues today. And I've had it with it. So every time I hear never again, it is happening again right now. Thank you for reminding us of the tragedies that happen today, right now in Iraq and Iran. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Weiss?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been a long morning. I just want to thank the many leaders from the community who came today, and I want to particularly acknowledge Paul Krikorian and Michael Amarian. Thank you for everything you do on behalf of your community. And I do want our council president to know that every time I meet an Armenian leader in Los Angeles, they talk about Eric Garcetti. You've obviously done extraordinary work for the Armenian community. Thank you, Mr. Garcetti, for ensuring that this city is on record and stays on record very clearly, very unanimously on this important issue. Thank you very much, Mr. Garcetti.
Mr. LeBon?
Thank you very much. I stand to rise to this support here. I want to thank you, Mr. Garcetti, for always organizing this as well. I want to thank the young people, because the young people in their involvement here will carry the ball further as we try to change this attitude that has prevailed for all these years. And I want to also, as Eric did, represent Ed Aberbranian right here. Ed is our top person to light every street in the city of Los Angeles, the department head, and let there be light on this issue so that it can resolve in the future. And also Avak Katalian, who does a great job, the senior man here in the Legislative Analyst's Office. Please give Avak a special hand there.
Mr. Huizar, Jose Huizar.
Thank you very much, and I just want to again thank Mr. Garcetti for raising the awareness of this issue each and every year. And as I sit here and I listen to these stories, we recognize how this does not only affect the Armenians, but it affects all of us, because we know that if one group can be targeted simply because of their ethnic identity, any group can, and so we have to remember that. And thank you for being here each and every year. And to the Assemblyman, you really captured for me in your description of what this meant, the hurt of 9/11 and what it would mean if we felt that hurt over and over and over, and no one ever recognizing that that hurt even exists. So thank you to all of you, and we look forward to the Los Angeles City Council and the City of Los Angeles continuing to support this cause. Thank you so much.
And I'd just like to add that the Armenian people, the Lebanese people, have a very, very close bond. I was at a dinner a couple nights ago, hosted by the Armenian community, and I want to acknowledge that we are all brothers and sisters, and God bless you on this commemoration. And I must mention Adam Schiff, who's been a staunch supporter, as we all know, to bring this to conclusion. So thank you all for being here. Paul, good seeing you. Mr. Garcetti, that concludes.
Thank you. We'll just present these along with Assemblymember Krikorian to the members of the clergy that are here today. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your patience today, but in this most important and somber day. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Start over the left.
Mr. Clerk, we now have another presentation by Mr. Rosendahl. Next presentation by Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you all so much. So we'll sit down and...
We need to do that soon.
Thank you very much.
I won't be far.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much, and we will continue with the presentations. Mr. Rosendahl. And Mr. Michael Marion, if you could move to the right. Thanks, Mike. Thank you. All right, Mr. Bill Rosendahl.
Yes, you know, this thing we do on Friday is an amazing moment. You go from a joyous moment to a somber moment to a joyous moment, but it's basically recognizing, acknowledging history, acknowledging people at the moment, situations that are happening. So it's quite an experience for us elected officials to sit there and find ourselves engaged in international issues, and then the next minute we're back home. Well, we're back home again, but we're also in Poland at this moment, and I'd like... Yes, indeed. As you can see, Tom LaBonge, Mr. World, I call him. He's the guy all over the planet, everywhere, recognizing everybody. And that's because, as the mayor said, there are over 200 different languages. There are people from all over the world who are in this great blender of the earth, the microcosm of the earth, Southern California. First, Liz Tate, I just want to acknowledge Liz Tate, who organized this for all of us. Thank you, Liz, for doing that. We have the Minister of Culture and National Heritage, the Honorable Bogdan. Say your last name.
Strojewski.
Say it. Strojewski. Okay.
All right. Fantastic.
Okay. And we also have Pauline.
I'm here.
Paulina. Council General.
Paulina Kapuścińska.
Kapuścińska. Everybody knows Rosendahl doesn't know how to pronounce anything, so I just want to be clear about that. We are honored to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the Polish Film Festival in Los Angeles. The festival is put on each year by the Polish American Film Society, an entirely volunteer-run organization dedicated to the promotion of Polish film, culture, and the country of Poland. We have today with us many distinguished filmmakers and actors from Poland who came to show their movies here in Los Angeles. We want to welcome them to Los Angeles, the entertainment capital of the planet. And we intend to keep it here. No more runaway productions, by the way, for their contributions to the cultural fabric of Los Angeles. In 2009 marks not only the 10th anniversary of the Polish Film Festival, but also 90 years of Polish-American diplomatic relations, 20 years since the fall of communism, and 70 years since the outbreak of World War II. On the lighter note, 2009 is also the 100th anniversary of making of the first Polish film, feature film. That's interesting, 100 years ago, huh? To celebrate all these occasions, we have with us today the Board of Directors of the Polish-American Film Society, their distinguished guests, including filmmakers and actors from Poland, and the Consul General and the Minister of Cultural and National Heritage. It is a great honor to present a certificate, and I'm going to ask Mr. Labange to say a few words to the Polish Film Festival.
We'll get that right there.
Yeah, we'll do that there. We'll to you both, and we'll do that in a little bit. Mr. Labange.
No, thank you very much. I'll be brief. This is a wonderful morning. It's been long, but everybody's here. Everyone contributes in the world. But there's a special contribution the Polish people have made to film. Some of the greatest filmmakers. In fact, one of the greatest films about Los Angeles, which some people dispute the integrity of the story because it's about Mulholland, is Chinatown, which was filmed right here, and Mr. Polanski was the man who made that all happen. I'm just pleased to welcome you here with Mr. Rosendahl and let you know that you have a very great Consul General who represents you well, whose passion is putting forth not just a friendship city with Los Angeles, but a future sister city with Lodz in Poland and Los Angeles. So we thank you very much. It's great to be here this morning and salute you. And Mr. Minister, I thank you very, very much for this here. Big hand for everybody here.
Thank you, Tommy. We'd like both of you to come up and say a few words. You first, whoever, the
Minister.
Protocol, Mr. Minister.
Absolutely.
Time is very short. Thank you very much.
Hey, that's a good American trick. He's going to get our vote.
Very good.
This is great honor on behalf of the Polish Consulate in Los Angeles. Thank you very much for having us. Please. Thank you.
Please.
Hi, my name is Liz Smagala, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Polish-American Film Society. As Councilmember Rosendahl mentioned, we are an entirely volunteer-run organization, and every year we organize the Polish Film Festival. This is our 10th year, and we will be showing films until May 3rd at Laemmle's Sunset 5, the Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust, and the Egyptian Theater. So I invite you all to come out and see some movies. They're not all depressing, I promise. And also, it's just great to be here today and to be part of this day of acknowledging the many cultures that make up Los Angeles. Thank you for not forgetting about Poland. And also want to say a couple special thanks. Every year, for the past few years, we've received a grant from the Department of Cultural Affairs. And that grant helps us organize our event, it helps us advertise our event, and it helps us show you more films. So thank you for that. Also, special thanks to our friends here on the City Council, especially Bill Rosendahl and Tom Labange, and a couple staffers, Alex Fay and Aaron Gross. So thank you. As we say in Poland, dziękujemy, and I'd like to turn it over to our festival director, Władek Juszkiewicz.
Good morning, and thank you for having us here, and all the people behind me, the filmmakers from Poland. Thank you very much.
I like your speeches, man.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Mr. Rosendahl, could you tell us where those three theaters are again and what communities they're in?
The Laemmle Theater.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Liz.
We're at the Laemmle Sunset 5 on Sunset. We're at the
It's Crescent Heights.
Sunset and Crescent Heights. We're at the Egyptian Theater in CD13.
Las Palmas and Hollywood.
Las Palmas and Hollywood, and at the Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust on Wilshire and Pico, I think. So come on out.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And God bless Poland. And God bless America.
One shot. One boom. Really good. 3, 2, 1.
And for our final presentation, Mr. Garcetti.
Look at the camera.
Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. Okay, we're going to take two in the back room. Here we go.
Thank you very much.
Make sure you get all your hat back.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And this is our final presentation. It's been a very robust morning, and we thank those folks that are part of this presentation for their patience and all the great work that they've done. And we hope it's been a good and educational morning. Colleagues, it's my honor to introduce you to Faith to Green, which is actually not much of a new introduction. It's a reintroduction. It's the newest incarnation of the Coalition on the Environment and Jewish Life, formerly known as COJEL. This week I was honored to join Faith to Green at the home of Richard and Daphne Ziman at their annual Environmentalists of the Year Awards, where we recognize 6 individuals and 3 businesses for their impact on it and commitment to the environment. It was quite a way to celebrate Earth Day. But before we get to them, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the organization that brought us all together. The mission of Faith to Green is to instill a commitment to environmental protection rooted in our shared moral values. Law and tradition mandate that we protect, serve, and care for all creation, as it says in Midrash Ecclesiastes, Rabbah 7:13. Do not corrupt or destroy my world, for if you do, there will be no one to repair it after you. The connection between the spiritual world and the physical planet that nurtures life is at the core of Faith to Green's mission. They bring values consistent with faith to bear through a variety of initiatives designed to keep this world intact for the next generation and for generations to come. Specifically, with a Green Sanctuaries program that's working to reduce the carbon footprint of faith institutions, of synagogues and mosques and churches throughout the United States. Working on a green bulk purchasing program to help member institutions purchase environmentally friendly products, just as we do here in the city of Los Angeles. And their successful California-Israeli eco-technology program has secured more than $3 billion, that's with a B, in contracts that have created hundreds of jobs in the clean tech industries in Israel and California. And it's notable because Senator Boxer showed us recently in Washington, clean tech was the only sector which showed job growth over the last 6 months in this state. They've also partnered with organizations in the faith and environmental communities, bringing the two together. Their partners include the American Jewish Committee, the Anti-Defamation League, National Council of Jewish Women in Los Angeles, CalPERG, Environmental Defense, Physicians for Social Responsibility, NRDC, and many, many more. Before we get to the awardees, let's hear from Lee Wallach, who's familiar, I know, to all of you inside these chambers, the founder and CEO of the artist formerly known as Kojal, now Faith to Green. Please welcome Lee Wallach.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, folks. I want to make it brief. We're going to be delivering to you some of the materials from our reception. I hope you have a chance to read this over, because inside is a wealth of incredible information, not only about our organization, but more importantly, the partnership we have with this horseshoe and with this city. It's important to know that we can't do our job without you. The other folks that are partners with us in making sure that we can have a cleaner, greener future for all of our kids and grandkids are the business community. And please, read about these businesses that you're about to hear from. These are the folks that were doing it before it was sexy. These are the folks who were doing it before the movie. These are the folks that are trailblazers in the environmental, green, sustainable business movement. They are changing the world. These are some amazing people. When our mayor talks about the cleanest, greenest city in America, it's because of these folks behind me. And they are really our partners. And they are our latest inductees to our Green Seal program. Kind of like the hot dog, we answer to a higher moral authority, as we all should. I'd also like to take this moment. It doesn't happen without one more group of people, and that is our staff, represented by Laura Kahn, who wouldn't come up here, is over taking pictures, and Melinda Grodsky. I have the most incredible staff in the world that you folks don't get to see often enough, but I thank you very much for partnering with them every day, Lynette especially, to make sure that these things happen effectively. Thank you.
And for Lee, before we get to the actual winners, we made up a little something for you, Lee, from Jack Weiss and myself. Congratulations on your special reincarnation and your great leadership. Lee Wallach, ladies and gentlemen. Though we're not able to recognize a couple of the folks that are here, the Environmentalists of the Year were former Governor Gray and Sharon Davis, and they did tremendous things. Their record speaks for itself. During his time as governor, California purchased 10,000 acres for urban parks. He was the first governor in the nation to sign a law requiring automakers to limit their carbon dioxide emissions. And though the Bush administration denied time and time again by not giving a waiver to us our ability to regulate air quality, we look forward to the track that Governor Davis put us on, finally getting those waivers with President Obama. And we'll make sure we send the certificate to both Sharon and the Governor for their great work. Also not able to be with us today, but who is honored as well, is Senator Maria Cantwell of Washington. Her groundbreaking work on solar is she's probably the #1 solar policymaker in the United States of America. And in the passage of the solar investment tax credit has been critical to our work here, to private sector's work as well on solar energy, and we honor her and thank her too. The three honorees who are here, though, today are the ones that we want to especially celebrate. First, Gay Brown, who is right over here, who's the founder and CEO of Greenopia. Now, I've been in some of your offices and I've seen that slender, long green book that tells you where to shop, how to find green things in your own neighborhood. It's Greenopia. And she is the researcher, publisher, writer, the creator of it all. Tells us where to buy the greenest products, where the greenest restaurants are, and how we can live a more green life each and every day of our lives. Her work has helped us all understand that we all have a role to play, not just at environmental events, but whenever we do anything. And without further ado, I'd like to congratulate and introduce Gay Brown.
I'd like to thank the City Council and Mr. Garcetti for this award. I'm very proud to be standing here and accepting it on behalf of Greenopia, and for the 1,300 businesses that are in our guide that work tirelessly every day to make sure that the products that they offer their customers and that the way that they do business is on the cutting edge and the best for this planet. Greenopia was born in Los Angeles. It is our home. It is the city that's the most important to us, and we are determined to make it shine and be the greatest city in the nation. Thank you so much for this award.
We don't have the Greenopia on you? It's all right. We'll show it off later. Thank you so much, Gay. Second, we have Steve Glenn, who's also a friend of many here in this council chambers, founder and CEO of Living Homes. It was one of the proudest moments as a public policymaker to join with him as he unveiled the first LEED Platinum home in the United States of America. It was just over the boundary in greater Los Angeles City, in a small hamlet called Santa Monica, but he has homes that are now in the city of Los Angeles as well. And he has shown us that you can build beautifully and build green. You can build in a responsible way and in a way that reflects the great aesthetics and architecture of Southern California that has always been a part of this area. So we congratulate Steve Glenn, founder and CEO of Living Homes. Thank you for your great work, and let's hear from Steve.
I always wanted one of these things. I'm so honored. I want to thank Lee Wallach and Faith to Green. I want to thank Council President Garcetti and the Council for inviting us here. And I want to acknowledge the incredible leadership that the Council President and you all are providing in terms of environmental policy and programs. You are truly making Los Angeles one of the most important cities really in the world at setting a standard to which I think many cities, many countries across the world are aspiring, and I really want to acknowledge that. Appreciate it. We obviously are focused on the building sector, and the programs you put in place are watersheds, so thank you very much for that. And I want you to know that we have a home that we'll be building this year, LEED Platinum in Venice, so you'll be able to share some of the honor that Santa Monica has gotten from us. So thank you very much.
As Bill Rosendahl would say, great. We finally have a great honoree in Ellen Strickland, who is the co-owner and manager of Living Green. After you've had a great green meal that's come to you from Greenopia, after you've gone home to your Living Homes LEED Platinum certified home, you need to know what fills that home and those products to go and where to get them. And Ellen has helped pioneer the market for green consumerism by creating a market for healthier products for green homes. Their line and discovery of products gives consumers real access to items that reduce their ecological footprint on the environment, reducing emissions from the air, improving the health inside your own homes, and making sure that we conserve water and use less energy. So we congratulate Ellen Strickland, who is the co-owner and manager of Living Green. We'd love to hear from her as well. Here's yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks very much. I want to thank the council. I want to thank Councilman Garcetti. I also want to thank Faith to Green, and Lee Wallach, and all of the staff for putting this all together and showing us this kind of recognition and acknowledgement. I also want to thank the citizens of Los Angeles and the Basin, because they are the ones, along with you, who sponsor us, help us thrive and grow, and keep us as an active business in your area. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Yeah, Ms. Go ahead, Mr. Reyes.
Yes, Mr. Reyes, for a special introduction.
Yes, well, first I want to thank Councilman Garcetti for his leadership in the council, and to you all who are in that place where we are now redefining our economy. We're redefining our supply and demand, and we're doing it in a way in which it'll be safe for our grandchildren to say that my parents and my great-grandparents were part of a process that began to change the world in this century. And it's because of the pioneer work you do and the stamina that you're displaying today, so I want to thank you for your hard work. But please, and I'll do the introduction afterwards.
Okay. And I want to thank you, Mr. Reyes, for your great work on the environment, whether it's urban parks or our green roofs. Mr. Wesson, for all that you've been doing as well with green jobs in this city. Mr. Weiss, for protecting the Bay. The recycling and trash-to-energy projects that our sitting president has been doing. Mr. Weezar for his environmental justice work and work in the schools, and Mr. Parks as well, ensuring that environmentalism is felt everywhere in the city. We have an amazingly green council. I want to thank our chair of Energy and Environment Committee, a fellow Jew and environmentalist, Jan Perry. And I also wanted to plug that we have these new pamphlets that say, are you a homeowner, do you live in an apartment, or do you manage a small business? And we've put together in my office something that you can look and go straight through all the policies and all the procedures in the city of Los Angeles to go green. They're in English and Spanish, and if other council members want to use this as a template and print them up and put your names on them as well, it's a great way to get that out there, and it's really been inspired by the work of our honorees that are here today. So thank you. On behalf of Faith to Green, we congratulate all of our awardees, and we look forward to another great green year together. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Now, Mr. Reyes for the special introduction.
Thank you, Council President. I'm very honored to share with you a big moment for many of our young people that are joining us today. There's School of Mount Washington, Ms. Matkins' 4th and 5th grade class, and you're welcome to stand up, students. This is a great group of youngsters who live in the 14th District and the 1st District. Mount Washington is actually in the 14th District, so I want to thank and welcome Councilman Weezar also for being a host. But our Reverend Jeff Carr actually provided the bus, and Reverend, you can wave your hand. And I want to thank him for making sure that the youngsters have a great time here in City Hall. And Ms. Matkins, you are one of the teachers, one of the unsung heroes who influence our kids on a daily basis. And I thank you for your hard work. And again, children, this building, built in the 1920s, has a lot of history. The pillars here are made of materials that reflect our backgrounds, European material, material from the United States. So it's a great place. It's your building. Your parents pay taxes to maintain this building. It's your house. So welcome to City Hall.
Thank you. Mr. Weezar?
Thank you, Mr. President. And boys and girls, welcome to City Hall. This is your City Hall. And as Councilmember Tom LaBonge would say, go up to the Tom Bradley Tower, and I'm sure you could see Mount Washington from there, and see if you could find your home or your school maybe. But make sure you go up there. Welcome, boys and girls, and we're all here to make sure that the city runs well, that you get everything you need in your community. And remember, we also have personal responsibility to make sure that we take good care of our school, watch out for our community, and thank you, Jeff Carr, for bringing them out here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That concludes our presentations. Next item on the agenda, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, do you wish to take up public comment at this time?
We'll go into public comment. First speaker, Robert Aquino.
Thank you, council members. Robert Aquino with Engineers and Architects. Sadly, this week, our mayor referred to the city's most dedicated senior civil servants as dead wood. I think it's a very unfortunate remark, especially considering the fact that these are the same employees. They're the bedrock that the services that the city offers are built upon. These great and good people are the people that train your new employees, teach them all of the skills that they need to perform the work for all of you. They're the ones in the background that provide the ability to make all of the city's bureaus and departments work. Without their skills, this council couldn't do its work. Our brave firefighters and police officers couldn't do their life-saving work for the citizens of this city. Without these employees' work, none of the city's services could be conducted. These people work tirelessly in the background, and the comments made by our mayor have done grievous hurt to them. I do not believe that you and the City Council share his view that these fine, great, good people are dead wood. And in fact, the reason that I appear before you today is to humbly beg that this council will send a delegation to the mayor and ask the mayor to issue an apology to his employees for the comment he made in public. A leader, in order to have respect from the people he leads, must also give respect to the people he leads. And I will hope that, and your employees hope, that you will intervene on their behalf on this instance, because there is a grievous hurt that's been left behind. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Aquino. Walter Bechtel.
Thank you. I'm not going to speak about any bridges that disintegrate today, but I wanted to talk about something else. I wanted to talk about a movie that's coming out. It's called, what was the name of that movie? Something about somebody who is the soloist, I think is the name of it. It's about a story about a guy who was helped in the music industry, somebody who went down there on Skid Row or something. I've been on Skid Row for over 20 years now, and there was a lot of musicians who made cameo appearances. Many of them made me a lot of contracts and promises and et cetera. I'm still there. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for several of them to be prosecuted for the theft of my intellectual property. So, if you go to see this movie today, I hope everybody keeps in mind that isn't the usual sort of thing that happens. One guy was even made a poet laureate, and it wasn't found out till later that the supposed college that he attended doesn't even exist. So, but for some reason he wasn't asked or tapped on the shoulder to find out about the clandestine service, even if whether or not he had stolen any of those poems he supposedly wrote. And I don't know where he went. I think he went back east somewhere or is in another country right now. But this is not the usual thing. People, not just myself, are still down there waiting, and we are victims of these cameo appearances by people who supposedly were homeless, that just came down there to give themselves the appearance to be homeless and then walked away with our property and our being and copyrighted it and said it was theirs.
Next speaker is just addressed as Sean. Is he in? Oh, there he is.
Yes, good morning, all. It's my 45th birthday today. I just want to thank the mayor for not laying off city workers and not closing the libraries and parks. It was good presentations today. I enjoy all the presentations on my special day today. I like to also, but I want to tell you this. I didn't like what I heard about this morning about the fare increase for the MetroLink. I think it's wrong, and I think the mayor should keep having these meetings to decide not to raise the fares. I don't like fare increases. I never did. I think you should decide what to do about not raising the fare increases. No, this is a bad time right now. Nobody can afford it. And also, I'm having a good day today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LaBonge.
Mr. President, I want to thank Sean Murphy because he's 45 today, and I got a commendation for him. Unscheduled. And he's a good young boy. Happy birthday. Ah, young man. Okay, I was giving you credit. I like to be a young boy.
Yeah.
Give Sean a little love, everybody. Happy birthday. Good job. All right, here we go. Good job. Okay. You're a good guy. You're going to have a good birthday.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
How'd you get down here? Took the red line down here.
Thank you, Mr. Labarge. Arnold Sachs.
Yes, good morning again. Arnold Sachs. I'd like to point out to the council that while we were outside waiting to come into the office, no attempt was made to issue us any comment cards, so that we were denied the opportunity to address the council on items that weren't heard in committee. That's totally unfair. I asked one of the security guards about it. He said you had to wait online. I didn't get in here until 10:15, and the agenda was already posted and heard. That's a violation. If you're going to keep us outside, you need to provide us with the opportunity to fill out some cards so that we can pass them into the council. That's a violation. Now, that being said, LAWA has made news again. In case you missed it, LAX projects get additional $51 million. But of that $51 million, it's going to the architect. And that's the same architect, unbelievably, that failed to add the taxiway for the Midfield Concourse. Now we have a Bradley West building. Was that on the original plans? And please, someone, can you address the oddity that always seems to occur when I ask the question about the bonds? The city issued a bond for $950 million. LAWA issued a bond for $950 million. What is the status on both those bonds? You're shucking and jiving, and your positioning, addressing only one bond, would only lead to believe that there's some kind of duplicity involved here. The Gina Marie Lindsay, who is the head of the airport, mentions that the renovations will be paid for by the bond that was issued by LAWA. What about the city bond? What is the status of that? Can somebody say, in a sentence, both bonds are not going to cost the public any funding?
Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be Yvonne Michelle Autry. Is Yvonne Michelle Autry here? Okay, Yvonne Michelle Autry, you are our next speaker.
Good morning. Thank you for an opportunity to address the City Council. Specifically, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that April 12th, unfortunately, there was a double homicide, the first homicide actually reported downtown at Lamp Community. Today we are having a memorial in remembrance of the two gentlemen who were slain. I knew one of them, his name was Kevin Cohen, also known as KK. He was the liaison for the chorus as well as the soloist, which I'm sure generated quite a positive cash revenue, positive cash flow for the city. He was a liaison for the production company and the filming crew. Unfortunately, he was the victim of this homicide. What we're asking is that you recognize and that you'd actually fund a reward for the apprehension of the criminals. Much like that reward, I believe $70,000 of which was contributed by the city for the slaying of the USC students. It has been my experience as an African American woman of the disparity and the lack of consideration or acknowledgement of the value of our lives in comparison or relative to our Caucasian constituents in Beverly Hills and Westwood when slayings and homicides do occur. We'd also like a greater attention that could be focused in the resolution of this homicide. As of yet, the police department have not reviewed the videos, they have not begun an investigation, and this homicide occurred over 2 weeks ago. We'd like the same consideration and acknowledgement and recognition, as we do have value The fact that there has been no investigation says to me again that there's a double standard when prosecuting, when investigating crimes that occur in by and large Caucasian areas relative to areas that are black.
Thank you very much.
Again, if you could draw up a resolution for a reward, we'd be most appreciative.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Michael Hutzman.
B-M-A-N.
Okay, Hubman. Michael Hubman.
Good morning. My name is Michael Hubman. I'm a human rights and homeless rights activist. I'm speaking to you as a member of the Coalition for the Abolition of Safer Cities Initiative. On March 28th, I was privileged to attend a congressional subcommittee hearing on foreclosure crisis and foreclosure fraud. It was chaired by Councilwoman Waters and attended by Congresswoman Watson. Although homelessness was not in the title, it was woven throughout all of the presentations by the panelists from the charitable and human rights community. It was also front and center on the minds of the two congresswomen. I think that foreclosure and homelessness are like wicked sisters. The human rights service presenters on the panel stated that the shelter system is clogged. Here are some of the numbers. Realty Track, 2008, 2.3 million households in some stage of foreclosure process, an 81% increase over 2007, a 225% increase over 2006. Credit Suisse estimates 8.1 million homes will enter foreclosure in the next 4 years. Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority 2007 homeless count. Los Angeles County, approximately 73,000 people are homeless on any given night. Estimated 40,000 of those are from the city of Los Angeles. Broken down further, approximately 23,000 people are chronically homeless. 16,000 homeless people are in families. Los Angeles is arguably the homeless capital of the United States, with Skid Row as its public face. With economic displacement creating a gravitational-like push towards the bottom, we are experiencing a grapes of wrath type migration towards the places where these meager survival services can be had. Please, let us try to treat these economic refugees, these people, like we would like to be treated. Please, let us stop harassing them as they struggle to survive. Thank you.
And now we go to the San Fernando Valley for Mr. Zuma Dog for public comment.
Yes, thank you so much. As you know, I had to take a little retirement from the council meetings, but when you start public comment this late, you just make it too easy. But I'd like to say I saw the mayor yesterday. I went to the town hall budget meeting, and the mayor, he had a great presentation. A lot of times he kind of fumbles and stumbles and stutters and stammers when he's in the media. He was at his best last night at the town hall meeting. He had nice little charts. He was running around like Tony Robbins pointing to the charts. Here's the problem, though. It's all based on something that's not going to work. It requires a lot of givebacks at the city level, and I don't think it's realistic. And I'd like to tell people, and this will be on the record, City Council will be voting on a budget proposed by the mayor, which you'll be voting on it based on a yes vote from all these unions with all these givebacks. We just heard Bob Aquino from the EAA. Doesn't sound like they're happy. The police aren't happy. Nobody's happy. Librarians, teachers. I just don't think they're going to do it. And the question is, so you'll be voting yes on the budget based on a yes vote from the unions. I'm here to say you're going to have to be redoing the entire budget again. So this budget's just a flim-flam, shim-sham, time waste to savor, I guess. So again, it's going to be very hard times with the budget. Dr. W. Edwards Deming, I spoke with the mayor a little bit. This is the time. The time is now. How interesting that Zuma Dog, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, his message is, Dr. W. Edwards Deming, do a Google search, the 14 points. I'd like to offer my services to start working with the city, and I'm very serious. I have my notes and videos and things, and I'm here. You can laugh all you want. I hope there's laughter in chambers when I'm here to say the city will be embracing the 14 points. This is the answer. Here's a man standing up from the city trying to do something. Thank you, Mayor, for listening.
Thank you very much. Back to Council Chamber with Michael Hunt.
Thank you, City Hall. My name is Michael Hunt. I'm here on
behalf of the Venice issue. Today, or yesterday, April 23rd, we were issued a summary judgment declarement by Dean Pragerson right here, which I'll be giving everybody copies. First and foremost, I want to say I'm here to try to mitigate the responsibilities of Los Angeles City in the vending ordinance and to try and get everything together to make it work for all the citizens of the United States. Second of all, I endorse Zuma Dog. You should give him a job. He's been down here long enough to really be working for City Hall. And Zuma Dog, I hope you really get a job down here. I think I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward for people out of the box and getting something new change in here so that people can think and think out of the box, as Janice Hahn would say. But really to mitigate the responsibilities of Los Angeles City and conduct a fair and impartial meaning for the Venice Boardwalk issues and things like that. Looking forward to taking over to some leadership in that responsibility in that area. I think now that the fight is over with, hopefully when Jack Weiss become city attorney, we'll have some real First Amendment people in office that can get the job done and really listen to the people. It's we the people, it's not the city attorney and the real estate greed and need of Venice Boardwalk, but it's really the people who really understands the conditions of human beings. Like I said, we the people in the First Amendment. I'm looking for Jack Weiss to be the new city attorney, and with that, I'll be talking to Bill, and thank you.
All right, that closes our public comment period. Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, what is our next item?
Madam President, before Ms. Hahn left the meeting today, she had asked that item 10 be reconsidered and considered.
Okay, would you open the roll on reconsideration? Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Okay, now this item is being reconsidered. Does the name...
And the questions were answered, so the matter is before you.
All right, open the roll on that item. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item.
Item 11 was called special by Councilmember Rosendahl.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Madam President. Could we ask the LAPD to come on up to the table and hold my time? Please hold my time. Thank you so much. They don't listen to me. They're still moving the clock. Would you hold it until they sit in? We're going code 3 over there. Jan?
Yes?
Could you hold the time?
Yeah.
Well, I was picking away.
Your time is held.
20 seconds I just lost. Every second counts in this world. Okay, tell us what this is about. Chief?
Yes, Mr. Rosendahl, thank you. Jim McDonald, Chief of Staff, LAPD. I'm joined by Commander Stu Maislin, our Risk Management Group. Basically why we're here, and as we talked to the Public Safety Committee earlier and the Police Commission, the whole goal we have here is to be able to provide our service in a better fashion than we have in the past. Currently, an officer is assigned Code 3, which is lights and siren, to get to a call fast in limited circumstances. One unit is assigned Code 3, and you may have a situation where you have, for instance, an officer shot or a firefighter down and needing help, and they put out a help call. One unit is assigned Code 3. The rest of the units are assigned Code 2, which means they're expected to follow all the rules of the road. So as we all experience, where you oftentimes sit in traffic for far too long, the officers are expected to do exactly the same thing. It's our belief that that's not what the community expects, that if they dial 911 or an officer puts out a help call, that they expect units to get there as fast as they safely can. What we're trying to do here today is to be able to change the policy to reflect the reality of the street, that officers need the discretion to be able to activate their lights and siren to respond in a timely fashion to an emergency call for service. The current situation relative to liability is the vehicle code for the state of California exempts police officers responding with lights and siren from the rules of the road, waiting for a traffic light, those kind of things. By allowing officers to activate the lights and siren, they then are protected by the vehicle code for their response. Currently what we see is Officers trying to do the right thing, activate the lights and siren, other than the primary unit that's authorized to get to the call fast, or other units, rather than try and activate the unit or the lights and siren, they try and stay within the parameters. However, they're driving fast to get to a call without the ability to warn the public that they're coming through. And the pushback we've heard is, well, then everybody should follow the rules. Well, that's the rules as they're currently constructed. I don't think they're realistic. I think what we need to do is to allow officers the ability to be able to use discretion to respond to the traffic conditions that they're faced with. For a dispatcher right next to Parker Center in a room with few windows to be able to know what's going on in the West Valley relative to traffic conditions or what that officer is facing is unrealistic. That's not fair. The officer dealing with the issues they're dealing with to get around traffic, to get to the emergency, is the person who's in the best position to be able to decide what they need to do to be able to get there.
Appreciate that, Chief. Do you want to add something to it from the history that you and I have experienced in the last 3 years?
Well, over the last 3 years, we've had several lawsuits involving officers responding to emergencies, but they were not using their lights and siren. They were violating the rules of the road. And quite frankly, since 2006, the city has been hit with liability bills totaling over $11.5 million to pay those lawsuits, whether they be through settlement or after judgments, jury verdicts. So one way to mitigate future payments is to allow officers to use the very expensive equipment we provided in the black and whites, their lights and siren, in conformance with the vehicle code, providing that, as Chief McDonald said, officers have an obligation to drive with due regard for the safety of everybody else on the road. And in so doing, that provides immunity, and the vehicle code provides immunity. So we're looking at saving the city considerable amount of money.
And also lives and injuries. Have people been injured and killed by some of those $11.5 million worth of payouts?
Absolutely, yes.
Colleagues, this is a very serious issue. This has been a serious issue for a long time. Some have said it was a cultural thing of the police. Is there any truth to this cultural thing? And if there is, do we need to put this into the training modules at all?
Well, it's cultural in that the officers are trying to follow the rules of the road and balance in the policy of the organization and balance that with their desire to be able to help the community. When somebody calls in for a call that's of an immediate violent nature, whether it's another officer or whether it's somebody from the community, a shooting in progress, for instance, the officers want to get there as fast as they possibly can to be able to help the person who's injured, to be able to capture the person who did it. Common sense, I think, as we would all think. However, we've precluded them from doing that legally by the way the policy's been constructed in the past. All we're trying to do here today is remedy that so that the officers have the latitude and the ability to be able to provide the best level of service possible, to get there quickly under circumstances that are often, as we all know, problematic relative to traffic. But they're going to be held accountable by supervision and management for doing so in a safe and appropriate manner.
Well, I just want to say that having sat on the Budget Committee for the last 4 years, every time we went into closed session and dealt with one of these situations where an officer went through the red light, went up to 60 miles an hour, didn't turn on the siren, didn't turn on the lights, we have seen tragedy. We've seen human lives lost, and we've seen the city treasury get hit hard. And I got to say, Mr. Smith and Mr. Zine and Mr. Parks and Mr. Weiss, and I don't know who the fifth member of that committee is. Who's the fifth member? To your right. To my right. You. Ed Reyes. Okay. The fact that the committee took it in, and I want to thank Mr. Parks for 245ing it and bringing it to the committee so that the committee could take some ownership of what the Police Commission has done. And the reality is it's a policy that in the past had some value to it that is now gone by the boards, and now an officer, when he's asked to go to back up something or senses he should back up something, has the ability to turn on the siren and turn on those lights, and we're going to avoid hurting people, be it the officer himself or the person that might be in one of the lanes as he's moving around. And I want to thank our chief for doing this and for you guys sitting here and working on it. It's not been easy to get to this point today, but we've arrived at this point, and I want to thank Bill Bratton and you guys here for making it happen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam President.
Next speaker is Mr. Parks, following Mr. Parks and Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bill, I think your efforts to get this moving is commendable, but I think there's, in my judgment, at least two major issues that were created. First of all, I don't think it's an accurate statement that was stated that officers were precluded. The current rules merely say you have to go over the air and ask to go code 3 or notify, and they acknowledge it. So first of all, the current system allows it if you go over the air and it's acknowledged. Where the shortfall came in is officers refused to do that. By creating this new rule, there's two major liabilities that shift to the city. The officer, certainly, we raised the threshold for defense of the officer because they have to drive with due regard. It's a higher level of liability in the sense of defending us. The two issues that are of most concern is that we have never had a situation, and not never, we generally do not have a situation where officers simultaneously are going red light and siren to the same location. And in doing that, with the synchronization of sirens, you're going to find a very critical issue of officer safety and their own injuries. The second issue is, even though that there are statements in here about supervisory involvement, if you don't know they're going code 3, you can't supervise them. So the mere fact that they choose not to go over the air, you're going to have officers simultaneously with no knowledge of each other driving through the city, and you'll have multitude of these incidents because these calls don't come out chronologically. They come out all through the city. There's no limit on the distance the officer can go. A guy in Devonshire can click on his red light and say, I'm driving the 77, because in his mind he's made a judgment that is dangerous. The fact that communications is not involved, you will not get the ability to go over the air and say, all units be aware there are now 2 units going code 3. The issue of you then going to that scene, all trying to get to the same location, you will find, and all we have to do is go to 5th and Wall and find out what happens when the sirens synchronize and officers don't know each other are going code 3. And in that instance, we lost 3 officers in 1 traffic accident. So I'm just saying, I voted against it, and I'll vote against it today because the current rule, all the officer has to do is pick up their mic and say, I'm going code 3. It's acknowledged. Generally, you hear it over the tape, and you have a record of it, and that helps in our defense. The fact that they choose not to, and we create a rule to let them go code 3 anytime they choose, you'll have 2 more major liabilities for the city. You might remove the officer out of punitive damages, but the issue of the liability amongst officer to officer, traffic accidents, and then the other issue of controlling it will be beyond your control.
If I could respond to that? I think a couple of things I would take issue with. Officers could ask, that's true, they could ask. The culture, as you mentioned earlier, the organization and the supervision was, the policy says 1 unit code 3. That's pretty much what was going on and has for many, many years going on. You said we don't have officers simultaneously currently responding to the same location. I don't know how long it's been since you've been at a help call, but they do respond. Whether they're authorized or not, they're responding code 3 to location. So that's not even on the radar. The policy as written says they should notify communications when practical. We have digital communications now, so if one person steps on another, we allow them not to have to do it. It's a should, not a shall now, so that the notification of communications, while desirable, sometimes just doesn't make sense. We do have supervision and management on big cases en route to the location so that they can monitor what's going on. That's a supervision issue. And then the 5th and Wall issue you bring up is we had 1 unit unauthorized code 3 going the wrong way on a one-way street. The other unit leaving Central was not going code 3. So you had 1 unit going code 3 and that crashed into another unit. That's not what we're talking about here today at all.
What I'm saying, let me go back. The fact of the rule today says we dispatch a unit code 3.
Right.
All an officer has to do is pick up their microphone and say, I want to go code 3, and communications acknowledges it.
Right.
So the fact that we say that 1 unit going code 3, you can overrule that by an officer going over the air. The fact that officers won't do that, you're changing the rules, creating additional liability. And again, when you say that officers are going code 3 now, multiple that an officer needs help, because many of them are violating your rules. And many of them are not going over are not going over the air, even telling you they're doing that, which then puts all of them in jeopardy. So that's my final comment, but I just think there's a need to know there's unintended consequences. You raise the level of threshold for your defense, but you create liability that is even greater on the other side.
Thank you. In response to that, my almost 30 years on the job, it's been like that all the time. When you put out a help call, units are going to respond code 3, and I think that every expectation, although the rules didn't allow for it, was that's what people did. If you've got an officer down, officers are going to get there as quickly as they possibly can, whether they're directed by communications or not. And that's been the way it's been for almost 30 years that I can talk about.
If I can add one thing to that, there's a reason why we're giving officers the discretion not to broadcast. The new policy says officers should, if feasible, after considering the tactical situation. If there's a help call where an officer, say, is involved in a shooting, or there's a call from the public involving an active shooter, say, a robber that's an active shooter in a Columbine-type incident. If every unit is taking up the air with their code 3 broad notification that show me responding code 3 from here to there, show me responding code 3 from here to there, the unit that needs to get back on the air to provide additional information to responding units, for example, which way to approach so they don't drive into the kill zone, or the fact that they need an ambulance for a downed officer, they won't be able to get the air and they won't be able to make that broadcast. And that's why we're giving officers the discretion to respond without that requirement that they shall do it, because it's just not safe to do it all the time.
Next speaker is Mr. Reyes.
I know it's a long time coming, and Councilman Rosendahl stuck to it for almost 3 years now, so after 3 years we're at this point. My question really is about environments that we create. We do get concern from the constituents in my district, where currently we already have a helicopter presence in the air that's fairly constant, and that's a concern. But you also have now this notion that we're going to have increased sirens, because not everyone or anyone that is responding can flick it on when they've deemed necessary. Parts of the city, you have population bases that are very high in number. With that, incidences of crime, and when you have a 40% poverty rate in 4 to 5 of the districts in the city, you have incidents occurring. So my question is, this new policy, will it establish an ambient environment where you have increased sirens throughout the day and night? Can you speak to the numbers of calls that have been occurring in the past few years? So that way we can get a sense of what is the impact within these neighborhoods where you have these kinds of socioeconomic conditions. Please hold my time.
If I could ask Commander Maislin to talk about that. He's got the numbers that he put together comparing a period, I think, 2002 to 2007 for the latest numbers that we have, if you would.
Yes, actually, we changed the way we dispatch Code 3 radio calls in 2004. We started assigning more calls Code 3. Interestingly enough, though, in 2002 we had a high of 96,500 Code 3 calls for service. In 2004, when we changed those procedures, we were down to 82,000. For the year of 2008, I think concurrent with the crime reduction that's taken place in the city of Los Angeles, there were a mere 46,900 Code 3 calls for service. And if you combine that with the number of pursuits and officer needs help calls and the backup requests that we're changing to emergency calls, that would add a mere 2,000 more calls. So we'd be at about 48,000 Code 3 calls in the city of Los Angeles if you extrapolate from the 2008 numbers. So we've had a great reduction from 2002 to 2008, which coordinates exactly with the crime reduction efforts that have taken place.
And I appreciate the slowdown and the obvious reduction in crime, but isn't it true that in certain parts you still have high levels of crime, and it might have been reduced citywide, but in sectors of the city the reduction has occurred, and that is very true. but isn't still the incidence of crime still relatively high? And the fact that you'll have more sirens produce that much more noise? Again,
I see what you're
I'm trying to put it
get
into
at.
context here.
Yeah, what's the impact going to be on certain communities around the city? I think the potential for more noise related to sirens is a possibility. However, the sirens are responding to calls for service that are significant calls for service. I think the people in the communities that are going to be impacted by that also benefit from the fact that the police are getting there faster and hopefully taking care of business quicker. So, I mean, there'll be a greater awareness. I think the trade-off is ambient noise versus response to the police department. And at the end of the day, I think public safety is what the people in the community expect from government. The noise factor is a side issue, and any kind of response that would be inappropriate, where people are using the siren more than they need to, that's what we need to take care of through training, through supervision, through management.
And if I can add one thing to that, I think there's two groups of people that are impacted by this, and I think the people that call for that service are going to be very gratified to hear those sirens coming, and I think the bad guys that are committing those crimes are not going to like the sound of the sirens coming. Right. And ultimately, if we get there quicker, I think we see more people going to jail, and we see greater crime reduction efforts in those communities.
And it's important to have this discussion because in my district, I have a district of extremes. Yeah. High levels of poverty, but you also have very high income folks living up in the hills and living up in areas that have been going through what they call gentrification. So those who aren't living on the flatlands, we need to put in perspective why they're hearing more sirens. Right. And the fact that there is an urgency and there's two sides to this dilemma. Right. The other challenge I have, and I shared this with you on the record, is I have 6 divisions in my district. Right. Most council districts have 1, maybe 2. I have 6. So the culture of different captains, how different chiefs operate, their resources, the levels of consistency on who's going to get to that border area, and what tends to happen, and it's not happening as much anymore, but it still happens where maybe that division will take care of it, no, that one will. So where are the sirens really going in my district? Could be a big question. Who's going to answer? So I know that's a tough one, but I need to put that on the record and maybe get some consistency on how these policies are being interpreted.
Yeah, I think the way we've attempted to write the policy is so it's clear to everybody what our expectations of the individual officers are, but the goal was to be able to give enough latitude to the individual officer based on the conditions they're facing in response to a call. If they need to flip on the lights and siren to warn people they're going around the red light, then that's what they need to do. But by doing that, the people who are at that intersection are going to be safer. The people who call the police are hopefully going to be safer, and the response is going to be quicker. So at the end of the day, I think we're walking away with a policy that satisfies the needs of the community much better than we have done in the past.
And again, I appreciate this discourse. So those who are listening will understand why we're taking these steps, and depending on the vote, how this will be implemented.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. And I hope Mr. Parks wasn't talking about a particular officer in Devonshire going Code 3. That wasn't me, was it? All right. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if he was talking about me, but anyway. And I think Chief McDonald explains Fifth and Wall. I think the bottom line is Fifth and Wall would not and could not happen if people obey the rules. Right. Fifth and Wall was a situation where 2 officers decided to break the rules of the road, right, which they're not allowed to do. So under any policy, that should not have happened. This policy won't change that situation. I understand your concern about conflagration of officers coming at the same time to the same location. When we were in the committee with this, and for the benefit of the rest of council, my concern was that we used to have this Code 2 High system that people kind of did what they weren't supposed to do anyway, and were dispatched Code 2 High, which didn't even exist in our manual. Right. And it put officers at risk, it put the department at risk, it put the city at risk. And I think the clarity you've now brought to this Code 3 policy is the right policy. And I commend Mr. Rosendahl for sticking it out, because it wasn't an easy thing to accomplish, but it was the right thing to do. But I want to go over what you said, Commander, in committee as to training officers that this is in their best interest when it is feasible to do so, because if they get into a situation, that fact that they are on record at a time particular of being Code 3 can save them and us a lot of lawsuits if they're in an accident. And so if you would explain that, how that works, that when they timestamp the record, or they acknowledge it or they broadcast it, is in their best interest, and that you're going to do that in training.
That's correct. I mean, we're going to have a multi-tiered training program on this. It's going to start with a video. It's going to be followed up with roll call lesson plans and scenarios where we provide guidance to the officers, as well as through our e-learning process. So we're going to hit it on several different fronts over and over and over again to make sure that that takes place. And you're correct, and that's why we have this. You know, we expect officers to continue to broadcast their Code 3 response when they can, for that very reason that you said. So it is time-stamped, and you know, for the same reason Mr. Parks said as well. So it is time-stamped and it's on the record. However, there are those exceptions when it can't be done and when it's not feasible to do it. And that's when we're affording them the discretion not to.
Okay. And also, Mr. Roosevelt alluded to this, and just to clarity, that this is a policy of LAPD. Every other department in the state doesn't follow this policy. In fact, most departments dispatch Code 3 to virtually everything.
Right, correct.
And we have our policy because of our very large city with a very complex traffic issues. We've tried to be cautious in how we use Code 3 to save people's lives that are citizens that are not involved.
Yes.
But it has gotten to the point over the years where it became totally a non-event. Code 3 calls were rare. Officers would maybe go on one Code 3 a week sometimes, and it was very rare. So Code 3 became, this culture issue, became a dispatch problem because when you got it, the adrenaline started pumping. You got this tunnel vision, which officers learn about, but you cannot control it once you get in that situation. And so by loosening up, those problems have resolved somewhat and lessened. And I think it's been a good policy. I think we went the right way when Chief Miller helped us resolve that and see through that issue. And I think this is the right solution. So I am very pleased with what you brought forth. I look forward to the training component, particularly as it relates to sergeants who are there to control the situation, call off people that don't need to be going Code 3. And let me just tell you really quick on the culture issue. When I was a young officer and waiting for those Code 3s, which came very rarely, I got a call. I was about 8 miles away from a call. It was a woman who was screaming, "Please help me, please help me, he has a knife," and the phone went dead. I was dispatched Code 2 from 7 miles away, and I said to the RTO, try and contact the person responding to check the situation, and the phone line was dead when they called back. I said, I am going Code 3, because it was 15 minutes away at least. It was a good thing that we did that. But in retrospect, and the reason officers didn't go Code 3, because when I got back to the station, my watch commander said, "What the heck are you doing? You do not initiate Code 3s. I said, "I'm sorry, sir, but here's the circumstances. I felt a woman's life was at risk," and it probably was, because we got there and sustained the husband and stopped a physical abuse that may have turned into murder. Those were the kind of cultural problems we had in LAPD about Code 3. We were so afraid to issue Code 3 calls that we didn't do it when it was logical. And I think your policy now is one of logic. I think what Mr. Rosenthal has brought forward is one of risk management that is correct, and I urge the council to support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Alarcon.
You know what drives me crazy? Nobody moves over anymore. They don't move over. And it's in every community across the city, up and down the state. People do not move over when they hear the sirens and the lights. They just freeze. And they'll freeze in any lane, and quite often they block the officers. I have seen many circumstances where you can almost sense the decision-making process of the officer as they're trying to figure out whether to turn the lights on, beep the siren, or violate the rules to get someplace they need to go. You can almost sense it because they'll do crazy stuff. Like they'll turn their lights on going through a signal, but then they'll turn them off right away. And you know that's not exactly the way things are supposed to be done. I know that, and I'm not even a cop. Or they'll go boom with their siren, and then they'll take off. There are all these little tricks that they use, as opposed to turning their lights on and the sirens. So, number one, it seems to me that if you're going to make a mistake, you're safer making the mistake of trying to make everybody aware of your presence and going through with safety and getting to the site as quickly as possible, rather than trying to have so many officers trying to figure out the little tricks they're going to use to get to the place a little quicker, and knowing that they're not going to get there as fast as they possibly could. And certainly Code 3 would provide that opportunity. But even under Code 3, we still have this problem where people do not move out of the way. And I would hope that LAPD could initiate some kind of public relations effort, and particularly in foreign languages, that would let people know that they can move over safely, let the car that's going to violate that rule pass you and get like 100 feet more than you, but move over and make everybody safer. I think that would greatly reduce the incidence of accidents and in many cases the city's liability. With regard to this policy, I think it's worth a try, and I've seen it in the 7th Council District many times. In particular, it happens where officers are trying to get to Sunland Tahunga, or back from Sunland Tahunga back into, I was going to say the real world, but I won't say that, but get back into the other side of the Foothill Division, where officers are driving extremely fast without lights, and I know they're going on a legitimate call, but they're trying to get there without the opportunity to use Code 3, and if they did, who knows, they might save a life or property. And so I'm okay with this policy, but I hope that LAPD can work with Channel 35 and maybe some of the other larger media stations and develop a public relations campaign to educate people about the need to move over when they hear sirens behind them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are going to address that. Chief is going to address that as media availability, and we're going to put forward a campaign. The fire department faces the same issues. People freeze, or they've got headphones on, or the radio too loud, or the air conditioner, the windows rolled up. Yeah, it's an issue that, thank you for bringing it up, but yeah, we're moving forward with that as well.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. You do have a protocol Move to the Right, which the fire department initiated, but also there is, you said, about 96,000, Commander? Code 3 calls?
It was 96,000 way back in 2002. It's 46,000 in 2008.
So it's reduced?
Halved.
What is the speed limit? Is there a speed limit on that?
Speed limit while driving Code 3?
Right.
No, it's to drive with due regard for everybody else on the roadway. And if you notice, when you see officers driving and breaking the speed laws without their lights and siren on, they tend to be driving very fast. And when you see them driving Code 3, they drive much slower.
Since the change, other than the tremendous reduction in the number of Code 3, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Has the accidents gone up at all?
Do you have that data?
Are you talking about accidents with the public or
accidents between the Code 3 vehicles and accidents, like prior to the protocol change?
Well, the change actually hasn't taken place, but we went from a high...
No. First protocol would have changed in 2004.
In 2004, correct. In 2002, we had approximately 38 collisions while officers were driving Code 3. In 2004, that increased to 69. And then it's gradually kind of gone down to last year only 36.
36.
So, the number of calls have gone down, but the number of accidents have also gone down.
Right.
And it's a constant effort to train and educate our officers.
Prior to the police department initiation of this, I was talking to the late great Commander Jimmy Tatro. I had just returned from a trip from New York City and saw how their police, because of the traffic, moved through. And as I came back, you were just in the process of changing your protocols on that. I just think safety is so important, so I have it in your hands to do that. There's a reduction. I appreciate Mr. Parks' comments on everything from his experience as the general manager, but I'm going to listen to those who are there now. I just want to remind them that whatever the speed is, people don't hear anymore. Mr. Alarcon, you're 100% right, and it is a challenge. And in some other parts of the world from my travels, the red lights, whether it's an ambulance, a fire vehicle, or a police vehicle, they compete with the traffic. I mean, in Italy, and they're running through the intersection at the same time.
How'd that go?
I can't do that again. I did it once. But you know what I'm saying. I do know that our divisions are very large. That's why I want to see a Northwest division at one time, because to get from one end of Northeast Division, which starts at Colorado and Figueroa, to get to the Southwest near City College, Santa Monica, and Normandy, there's only 3 roads you can go down. Los Feliz Boulevard, Hyperion, Glendale, or Fletcher, Glendale. And it's very challenging. And this morning, I think at 5:40, what time did I say, Harry Ito? Whatever time it was, Code 3 was coming through. There was a major incident somewhere in the Santa Monica, Hoover Street area, but it was necessary. And I just want them to make sure they don't go too fast, to remind them if they don't need to, it's just to make the people aware. And I also think, not just with the Move to the Right program, we're going to ask in a friendly way that manufacturers make aware, because music is so part of our lives, so a lot of times we listen to music in there, that there would be some mechanism of developing the future manufacturing of vehicles that it would scramble when there was a vehicle noise impact. I think that could be done in technology, that it would scramble to say, be aware and move to the right. And maybe we could ask John Fisher to develop a sign for DOT, like we have Share the Road. Maybe there's a campaign with a fire truck and a red light or a police car, move to the right, because it's important. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Thank you for ending on time. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. Clerk, what is before us?
Oh. The majority report would be before council.
Your button's not pressed.
The majority report was moved.
All right, so say that again, Mr. Clerk, for the record.
The majority report from the Public Safety Committee is before council.
All right, would you please open the roll on that? Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
8 ayes, 2 noes.
All right, that passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item.
Thank you.
Item 12 was called special by Councilmember Grewal, but I believe Mr. Parks will take lead on this.
We do have a speaker card on item 12. We have 2 speaker cards on item 12. Let's take care of that. Mr. Sachs, while you're coming up, we will then go to Van Nuys after Mr. Sachs for Mr. Zumadog. So it'll be Arnold Sachs and Zumadog.
Certainly. Thank you, Arnold Sachs. In order to meet deadlines established by the federal government to secure American Recovery and Reimbursement Act of 2009 funding for the City of Los Angeles and related discussions, maybe you can use the same kind of application you used when you got the federal funding for the rape kits, where you didn't have to look into the situation that was involved with hiring more personnel, even though you knew that the federal government was going to impose a national database, and that national database included more categories for testing. You failed to increase the number of personnel that would be necessary to pursue those tests in a timely manner. Or maybe you can use the same kind of application like you used this morning when you kept the public outside and didn't allow us the opportunity to address the city council on your agenda, and wait till you get the money. Then, or maybe you can use the same kind of application you used for the mayor's proposal for the stimulus funding, where the council projects are repetitious in their nature, but the funding remains the same, so that each council is like getting $5,000, if you look at the report, for their street paving, but only $5,000 is being requested as a total amount. So who gets the money? And who gets the shaft? Well, we know the public is going to get that, but how much money will show up? Will it be $5 million, excuse me, not 5,000. Will it be $5 million per council and only $5 million spent and the rest pocketed, like the funding for the DNA testing?
Thank you very much. Now we go to Van Nuys for Mr. Zumadog.
Yes. First of all, yes, I'd like to make sure that City Council does not miss any opportunities for grant applications, these deadlines. We do have a problem at City Hall, lack of leadership, and it's not a besmirch, I'm not slamming, it's big City Hall. The mayor is kind of insulated and isolated with a lot of staffers that keep him away from stuff. There's a lot of lack of communication between council and the mayor's office, and a lot of times deadlines are missed. Now, I also would like to make sure we need an oversight committee for this money being spent, because Zumadog sure doesn't trust anybody in the city to just have blind oversight of spending on this. And also reducing waste. We must address with this money that is federal money that is so important how to make sure we get the most for the money, reducing waste and efficiency increasing. And that's through Dr. Deming's 14 points. And I'd like to say regarding the myth of the 14 points, I heard Richard Alarcon on item 11. He was speaking 100% 14 points. It has 100% approval under Zumadog's interpretation of the 14 points. So that's all it is. Go back and listen to Alarcon's speech on number 11, and that's what we're talking about here. More of that type of thinking in City Hall. And the very big important point I got to keep remembering here is that, let's see, here's something very important. A lot of people are against the mayor now and scared of anything that he's associated with. We must have the mayor succeed. There's a lot of hatred towards him, a lot of slamming. It's like no matter what he says, there's going to be some other activist or blogger that's going to be against it. Hey, if the mayor goes down with the ship, we're on the ship, people. So the mayor's asking for help at these town hall meetings. I applaud that. And he gave me an opportunity to address him. We must want the mayor to succeed no matter how much you dislike him. No one's spoken out more against the problems of the mayor, but now we must unite and really try to make this thing work, people.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you. There are no further cards on this item, and there are no speakers in the queue. So, Mr. Clerk, if you would please open the roll. I'm sorry, the button. Mr. Parks, did you press your button? Because it's not showing up on the screen. Okay. Now we have Mr. Parks.
This is a continuation of the ad hoc meeting, and Mr. Garcetti and Ms. Gruhl are not here, and so they asked me to lead the discussion on that. So if we could have the departments come up, we can go in order of the agenda from this morning, so everybody's aware of the items that are being submitted. And what I understand from the agenda this morning, 2 items were pulled off for the police department. So if we could start off with the harbor. Pardon? Is the Harbor Department here? Okay. Because I understand they have items A through D.
We can go straight to PD, continue your questioning for PD.
Okay, because we don't want the rest of the council to see that?
If you'd like.
Okay.
It's totally up to you.
Okay, because I thought because nobody saw it but us.
Yeah, because it's committee.
Yeah.
But there was still...
I don't think we dealt with that in general services. Council's approving all the items. I think the Halo people are going to be leaving, so. Okay. All right. Let me ask, CEO, do we have any departments here? Okay. Why don't you come up to the table and we can detail?
So we'll see your time because they all get their press and
Good afternoon. Bill Kreitz with the CAO's office. We are continuing with the agenda for the ad hoc committee from this morning. My understanding is that we have items F, G, H, K, and L, I believe, from this morning that were carried over. Those are city attorney items.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't we bring the police department up for those 2 that we discussed, and also that the 2 that have been eliminated, and then we can get back on schedule. The city attorneys were not discussed, and I believe we have one for dealing with Halo, with the city attorney and the LA County probation and public defender. So we can get the police department, the 2 items that were discussed, because there were questions that were not resolved.
Yes, if we could have the police department representatives come up.
And that's L and J, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Could we just ask for the benefit of providing information to the council that you're merging L and J grants, what the matching funds, I think the question that was not asked or answered in the committee was whether we're getting full cap rate or whether we are being limited by the grant as it relates to the cap rate.
Laura Filatov, Commanding Officer, Fiscal Operations, LAPD. We just got clarification from the Mayor's Office, and in fact, we can ask for the full cap rate for reimbursement, so we're going to be revising the application to reflect that.
Okay. And could you advise the council on what the total matching funds and where those sources of funds are coming from?
No, there is no match requirement. We'll be able to get full cost recovery.
Okay, I'm sorry. Would you tell us what the full amount of the two grants are?
I don't have the actual dollar amount because we have to go back and recalculate, but we're going to be able to add, it's for the sworn, it's 104%, takes care of the entire indirect rate.
Okay, okay, we passed the cap rate. What is the total amount of the grants we're seeking?
The grant?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm trying to explain is that we initially had put in 47%, but we're going to be able to do the entire cap rate.
Okay, I understand
So the
that.
number is going to change.
Okay. Could you tell the council what is the total amount of the grant? I think it's 19 million.
It's 19 million, but
Okay,
that will
that's-
go up.
That's the number we want. So it go beyond the
Yes.
19 million.
Yes.
Okay, the other thing is how long are these grants for?
2 years.
Okay, and also these positions that you're requesting are on RESO authorities?
When we come back to council, we get this grant, yes, we would ask for resolution authority for those positions.
Okay. And then you mentioned also for the council's awareness, when these grants are approved, we have the ability that depending on how the outcome of the budget, that we have the ability to possibly alter them from being used as an additional position versus attrited positions. Do we have that ability?
We're going to have to take a look at what our options are and work with the grantor to see what we can do. So I don't have a decisive answer for you, but that would be one of the options that we would discuss with the grantor.
We'd ask that you look at that while this is going through the process, and depending on the outcome of the budget, we'll have a better idea once these grants come back.
Right.
And also, we'd have a better idea of the full cost recovery on the cap.
Yes.
Okay. And colleagues, on these two items, L and J, and also, we'd like to ask in the future, because these reports that we received is information that did not come from the mayor or from the department, that we get these reports a little earlier. We have a standing Friday meeting that we can get the substance of the reports so we can make good judgments on them. And so we asked the CAO to do that for us, because on the two items today, it specifically says we have no information from the mayor's office or the police department, but we're being asked to approve the two grants. So I asked, and also could you tell us what the urgency, what the timing is?
The grant needs to be submitted on Monday.
Monday. All right, so I'd ask the council to move items L and J in behalf of the mayor's office and the police department. These two grants, they'll go upwards of $19 million, primarily for equipment and personnel, and with no matching funds that impact the SID and DNA process.
It's actually I and J. It's hard to see that little dot up there.
I'm
It's
sorry, I and
lowercase.
J.
Yeah.
Okay. And then if I understand it, K and L are being taken off the table.
Those were just options that we were considering, and the decision was made not to go forward with those two.
And also, when we have the meeting for next Friday, I'd ask that one item that we discuss, if you could have some additional information about the tracking system, whether that's going to be a future grant that we would select, where it appears it's like $4 million or something.
I can answer that, sir. Yvette Sanchez Owens, LAPD SID. We are taking that out of our height, and we're going to do that internally. We're in the process of creating that database now.
Okay, very good. All right, do we have any more for LAPD while they're at the table?
Not from us. You've got one more for...
You're working with the city attorney on one?
Yes.
Okay, if we can bring the city attorneys up while LAPD is also here. What item is that?
The items would be F, G, and H for the city attorney.
Hey, sir, how you doing? So the F, G, and H are city attorney grants?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Do they have a grant with the police department?
H.
It's H. Why don't we handle H first? Can we just get a thumbnail overview of what that grant entails?
Excuse me, council member, was that item F, did you say?
H.
Oh, H. H, thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilmember. Tina Hess on behalf of the City Attorney's Office. This grant is applying for funding for 18 positions, primarily for the City Attorney's Office and LAPD, with positions for the Housing Department, Building and Safety, to address issues related to the foreclosure crisis and mortgage fraud.
Okay, and also, you mentioned that there's no matching, and also give us an idea what the grant is going to cover?
Primarily, it will cover investigative resources for LAPD to pursue investigations related to predatory lending, mortgage fraud, with regard to the City Attorney's Office to assist in those investigations, as well as continue its work with the Building Department and the Housing Department with regard to foreclosed vacant nuisance properties and occupied substandard properties. Additionally, there'll be a component to link all of those agencies to the work currently being supported by the Neighborhood Stabilization Program within the Housing Department to acquire and rehabilitate foreclosed properties.
Okay. As a city attorney, will they be looking primarily at civil litigation or criminal cases? Both cases. All right. The other issue is that, again, on this grant, for the council's awareness, it looks like it will cover council districts 2, 3, 5, 8, 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, and 15. Is that right?
Primarily, Your Honor, Councilmember Parks, those council districts are listed in the order of the occurrence of foreclosure rates in the city.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because it's a dash between 5 and 9, that 7, 8 are in there.
I don't believe there's a dash at all. I think we'll look at all of the foreclosed properties, primarily based on in terms of code enforcement and remedies relating to the properties themselves based on the nuisance activity associated with those properties.
And then how long is the grant? Is it 2 years?
It's a 2-year grant.
And approximately how much money?
It is almost $6.5 million. It funds 18 positions.
Okay, the same instruction would ask you as this comes for approval, depending on the impact on the budget, if we can at least research whether this money can be used for attrition positions and additional positions.
It's my understanding, based on the application, that the grant monies can be used to preserve and initiate new positions.
We just want to be in that position in case the departments suffer any losses, that this money can be converted.
Yes, that's my understanding.
So, colleagues, on this item H, dealing with the city attorney and the police department, and dealing with foreclosures, we ask that that be moved. Next one.
We have someone here for item F.
Okay. Which one?
Yes. Hi, Councilman Parks. My name is Song Hai Miguda Armstead. I'm with the City Attorney's Office as well, and I'm here on behalf of the HALO grant.
Okay, what letter is that?
I believe it's F.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Item F.
Okay, can you give us just a brief overview so the council is aware of what that grant entails?
Sure, Your Honor. HALO is a program designed to help homeless persons and it focused particularly on those that are mentally ill and or drug addicted. It's kind of a program that's brought out of the Skid Row, the work that we did in Skid Row through SCI. And what it does, it has three components where homeless individuals can access housing and services in lieu of jail, essentially, and being caught up in the court system. The first one is the citation clinic. In that program, what happens is a person who's been issued a citation, instead of them going into warrant, which we find happens in clogging up the court system and then being arrested and spending time in jail on citations, they're given the opportunity to connect with service providers and actually work off their citations by doing 4 hours of a community obligation or community service with a service provider, hoping then to build a relationship so that they can stay in services and stay in housing. That's one component. The next component is a pre-filing diversionary program. And with that program, what happens with that program, at the time the person is arrested, they're then, if they have no history of violence in the last 5 years, no open felony warrants, they're then able to talk to a service provider. And if that person agrees to go into housing and services and stay off the streets for 21 days, that case is never filed. Once again, relieving the court system of the bogging down of all these types of cases. And those are for misdemeanor cases only. And then the third program is a post-filing diversionary program. And with that program, what happens is once a person is arrested, they're identified by the public defender's office as being homeless and mentally ill, or homeless and drug addicted, or homeless and co-occurring, meaning mentally ill and drug addicted. Then they are evaluated by a public defender social worker, narrowed down exactly what their issues are. They refer the case to us, the city attorney's office. We review the case for public safety issues. If we find that the person is a good candidate, then they're able to go into housing and services. A minimum of 45 days, maximum of a year. They're off the streets much longer than they would ever be if they were referred to jail. And hopefully their problems are resolved and they're able to stay out of the revolving door of the criminal justice system. So those are the three components of the HALO program.
Let me just ask also, are these costs, this $4.2 million, does it include services cost as well as positions in the city attorney's office?
Okay, no, I wanted to adjust the amount. The amount is for 3.4 now. There was some adjustment in staffing. And no, it's only for city attorney and public defender personnel.
Okay. Where are the costs coming from, or the source of funds for the services?
Well, right now for the pre-filing diversionary program, the funds came through LAHSA for downtown for the pre-filing diversionary program, and we're hoping that it will come from LAHSA again this year. For the post-filing diversionary program, defendants or arrestees or participants, however you want to refer to them, they get indigent beds sometimes they get county beds at Warm Springs or Acton. And typically what happens is they get referred, and then that provider works on getting them whatever benefits they're due, SSI, GR, those sorts of things, and that ends up paying for their bed. But we have never used additional funding than whatever the providers have already for the post-filing diversionary program.
All right, and again, it's now $3.4 million on the grant, primarily personnel and equipment materials for the city attorney's office. There's no matching funds. All right, the issue that we'd asked, just as we've asked on others, is that we ensure that as this is approved, depending on the cuts in your department, whether this would be attrition or additional positions, and also an additional request that you look at whether this can be sustained, or at least what are the recommendations to sustain it after the 2-year period.
Yes, Councilman. This grant does allow supplanting and also expanding, so it allows both. To answer the first question. The next question, our office at this time will do its best to continue the programs. They will try to retain any personnel that's hired in addition, but as we don't know for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much. Colleagues, I'd ask that we move letter F on this grant, $3.4 million, dealing with homeless services and working with the public defender's office.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, under the charter, we actually can't move any of these. They have permission to apply. It's then when they come back that we either move to accept or not.
Then we'll educate.
The information is noted, though.
So we're educating instead of moving.
Thank you. Absolutely. All in favor of education. And just so everybody knows, the agendas for the ad hoc are on everybody's desk, too, so you can follow along these individual item numbers that correspond to what was also on the council agenda, so we know that as well. Okay?
Thank you. Next item.
You're over. Mr. Rosendahl
you have a question
on the queue, so...
I wanted to speak about the homeless initiative there. The $4 million that you see there. Can you address that? Tell me what that means. Because, as you know, I have a huge homeless crisis in Venice. It gets only worse every day. And I don't want that money going just to Hollywood and to Skid Row. I want it in Venice, and I want a part of the program going forward in Venice. I'm hoping you write that into that request for proposals from Washington in the stimulus money, and that money goes to Venice. Can we do that in that application?
We can definitely ask. It might change the personnel count, but I wanted to address your question briefly. The citation clinic portion of it, there's 3 prongs to the HALO program. There's the citation clinic, there's the pre-filing diversion, then there's a post-filing diversion. The citation clinic is structured that it would move from month to month, from area to area, so that there's no problem putting that in all the council districts. That's for the citation clinic. For the post-filing diversion program, currently any case that goes into the downtown court, so whether it's in South LA or if it's in Hollywood or if it's in Central, it's not just for the Skid Row participants. So any case that goes into downtown LA qualifies for the post-filing diversion.
How about to the courts on the west side, to the airport court, to the Santa Monica court?
Yeah, we currently only have 1 jurist that will actually hear the cases. There is a possibility with the additional staffing with the Public Defender's Office that they can send a social worker to courts to identify if a person would qualify or not, and then we could have the case transferred. That's something that we would work on with the Public Defender's Office, but that is definitely a possibility. The idea is to eventually expand. If we are able to get this funding on top of any other funding we can get from the city, then we can definitely expand.
And the third part you were saying of the program?
So there's post-filing, pre-filing, and citation. So then the third part, the pre-filing diversionary program, currently is only in the Central Division, Police Division. That's where it is right now.
How do we move it to the west side, to the Pacific Division, which covers my Venice Beach?
We would have to get providers in that area willing to take those persons.
We do have providers in the area.
If we have providers willing, I'd be more than happy to figure out.
Will you take a look on that and
Yes.
deal with my office? Okay, because I agreed with the LA Times again this morning. I'm starting to agree with them more and more.
Interesting.
As they stick their nose into issues here, which is for me a joy to see the Times step to the plate and actually deal with issues instead of just playing gotcha games. And their comments about the HALO program were right on. It's part of the way that we should be dealing with the homeless issue. The constant criminalization and throwing them in and out of the jails is insane. Obviously we need permanent housing with supportive services.
Correct.
Obviously we need wraparound services and all that. But for God's sake, to throw them in jail and go through all that insanity is wrong. So I applaud the LA Times on that. And I understand that money is coming back into the budget again.
Yeah, hopefully, we don't know yet.
Yeah, well, it's a no-brainer, but thank you for that.
Thank you. No.
Thank you. Should we go to the next one?
Next item. The final item is item G.
Okay.
Is which one?
G.
G.
As in grape.
Sorry?
Will you press your button one more time, Mr. Parks? We'll run the clock on you. Thanks. We'll pause it. Do you want to present G?
Yes. Okay, Eve Sheedy, Director of Domestic Violence Policy at the City Attorney's Office. The purpose of the grant is to provide for 16 non-attorney positions, 8 investigators, and 8 victim advocates to support the prosecution of domestic violence crimes throughout the city. The program replicates a successful program that exists within our family violence unit now, which has a team approach to prosecution of domestic violence crimes where an attorney, a victim advocate, and an investigator is assigned to each crime. We found that to be very successful in terms of both conviction rates and providing victim resource services. The idea would be to expand that program to each of the 6 branch courts. There would be 2 teams in Van Nuys and 2 teams in Central, given the number of cases, and 1 team in the remainder of the branch courts.
Okay. Again, this is the $2.9 million grant.
Actually,
It went up.
All right.
It was, and I was recently, it's now 3.520. And that was based on the calculations that were described before.
Okay.
So,
And also, again, on colleagues, this is for personnel and equipment, and it's also 2 years funding, and we'd ask the department to look at absorbing, how they will absorb if the budget does not allow, or whether it can be converted to attrition if the budget cuts positions. So,
well, right. I essentially, as Song I was saying, that I'm hopeful that given that these are non-attorney positions, that in the future the office would look towards absorbing them. I also, having worked in the domestic violence field for a long time, given what I believe will be the success of the program, it may actually be an attractive program for other grant funding available in the domestic violence field.
okay, thank you very much. And so that, I think that's the last one of information, but let me just add one thing. Item 20 that was approved today provides guidance for the CAO and the mayor's office and others as to what the council policy on these 4 bullets that are in that motion. And also, I think on item, I believe 12 is it 12? Item 12 is a previously approved document that lists the criteria as it relates to the committee that met before. So combining item 20 and 12 will give you a great deal of guidance of what the council was looking for on the approval of these grants when they come back.
Thank you very much. So with that, we will go ahead and note and file that without objection. If we can call, yes, Mr. Weezer.
Possible to take special item number 1 out of order?
Yes, I was just going to call the roll. You mean item 25?
No, item...
there's Rule 23. Sure, yeah, we can take that up right now. Let's go ahead on the findings. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll recite the facts as presented to me by the maker of the motion for the council's consideration of the adequacy of the findings. Since the posting of today's agenda, the city has learned from the private nonprofit group Girls Today, Women Tomorrow that CDBG funds could not be released before the close of next week's close of escrow for acquisition of the proposed facility due to environmental posting requirements. Immediate action is required to approve the use of UDAG funds for a short-term loan until state Prop 40 funds could be released. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Anybody on the on the findings? If not on the findings, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
On the substance, Mr. Weezer.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for allowing us to take this out of order. Colleagues, this is an item that is of urgency, and we want to get it to the mayor as soon as possible. About a month ago, we came forward to provide Girls Today, Women Tomorrow a loan using CDBG funds to allow them to move forward with the renovation of a facility that they need to continue providing programming for young girls in the community. Unfortunately, we cannot use those funds at this time, and we identified UDAG funds to replace those funds. It's just an item that is of urgency, and so I appreciate your support on this item, and hopefully this can move forward so that this group can get their state funding and repay the city on this loan. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weezer, if nobody else wishes to be heard on this, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
And that is approved. If we can call the roll for the special meeting, or forthwith on that, please, without objection. If we can call the roll for the special meeting, please.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosenthal, Smith, Weiss, Westenzine, Garcetti, 12 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay. First item, please.
It is a one-item agenda. Item 25 is an item for which public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay. If there's no objection to consideration, that will be before us. Arnold Sachs, if you'd like to come forward on item 25.
Yes, thank you very much. While you also consider counterfeit goods, maybe you might also consider in this legislation or ask that counterfeit services that are provided without an appropriate valid business license or permit be considered as part of this agenda, because all too often, people provide unlicensed, invalid service without the proper documentation that they need to operate within the city, and there's no recourse, there's no investigation done on it, and it should be looked into.
Thank you. And I know for our HCD committee, we recently looking at some services provided on housing that will be coming forward to full council. So it was at HCED. It was in the housing committee 2 weeks ago on scams having to do with home foreclosures. So that's one place. Thank you. It'll be in council on Tuesday. Okay? Let's go ahead and open the roll. If nobody wishes to be heard, close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Mr. President, do you wish to adjourn the special meeting and go back to the regular?
Pretty please.
Next item, item 15, was called special by Councilmember Zine.
Mr. Zine, item 15.
He's not here. He's not here.
He is not here. On behalf of Mr. Zine, we thank him for calling this special. And with that, let's go ahead. If nobody else, Mr. Smith, do you want to say anything?
I was just going to say, Mr. Zine asked me to say that this brings attention to the graffiti laws, wraps it all together. It's a good bill. It really helps us resolve all those issues, and he wanted us to support it.
Absolutely. Proud seconder on that. So let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Let's go forthwith on that for the city attorney. If there's no objection. Next item, please.
Item 24 was called special for an amendment that has now been circulated.
Okay, item 24. We do, I think, have a card as well. Mr. Sachs, if you'd like to come forward on item 24.
Yes, thank you, Arnold Sachs. I'm concerned about the language in the second paragraph where it states the independent judgment of the lead agency. There was articles recently in the downtown LA News, regarding a park parcel that was being considered for purchase by the city. And in that purchase agreement, it was announced that an appraisal would be done, an outside appraisal for this purchase. And yet the appraiser used was the appraisal company that the park owner or the parcel owner had. So how independent that was, please define your term independent. If it's as independent as the appraisal that was used for the park parcel, then we're not getting any kind of independence there. If it's independent completely without strings attached, and I hate to use this word transparent, because there is no such term, there's a term, but no such standard, the public should be aware of it. If there's some kind of quid pro quo, then the public should be aware of it. It also, in this agenda item, doesn't mention, or could it be clarified, which lead agency are we talking about? Because there's no documentation in this. It would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Just before we take up this item further, Mr. Parks, do you want to make an announcement about committee?
Yeah, we have a
I've been told you did, but don't worry if you don't.
Just to make sure everybody's aware, my budget starts on the 27th at 9 o'clock in these chambers. It's for the next several weeks through mid-May. The agenda has been posted as far as the departments, and also we have the issues of already submitted information to departments to advise them of what the protocols are, and we will be having budget hearings every day in the week.
And I believe for today, there was a 1:30 meeting as well, but that's going to be delayed, obviously, until we
have a
finish.
budget meeting at 1:30. That's with environmental, a joint meeting dealing with two items, but one subject.
Okay, and so anybody who's waiting for that, we'll begin that about 10 minutes after we finish here.
Yes.
Upstairs. Sorry, after we finish here, it'll be upstairs about 10 minutes after. Thank you. Mr. Huizar is our first speaker.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank all these wonderful people who are sitting at this desk up here. This is a long time coming, but something that was a real collaborative effort. It was interdepartmental, and not only did we work with our council offices with John Perry and my office, but a number of stakeholders gave their input into this. So thank you for your hard work, and I think what this is going to get us to is a more walkable, sustainable, and it's going to provide people with different transit options once this is completed. So thank you for all your hard work. And if we could just briefly, someone go over quickly what this will do for downtown Los Angeles.
Thank you, Councilman Weezer. Emily Gable-Luddy for the record, council members. This project will redefine the street standards for an 1,800-acre area in downtown Los Angeles. It will implement urban design guidelines and standards that are made part of that new street standards adoption by the council and the commission. It has been a 2-year partnership with senior people from the redevelopment agency, from the engineering department, from planning, and the Department of Transportation, along with an urban design consultant and a transportation consultant you'll recognize as Alan Rifkin, former city employee. The city has not revised any street standards for almost 50 years, so when you take an action on this case today, you will be it will result in a paradigm shift. And the objective for downtown is to have minimum 15-foot wide sidewalks up to 24 feet wide. The objective for downtown is to introduce more Green Street, more sustainable approaches, to integrate our sidewalks in with our transit stops, and at the same time accommodate all the growth that we do project for downtown into the year 2030. There are a set of design standards and guidelines that go with this action today that will result in buildings that remain more walkable with ground level retail, with more open space areas where you won't really see the car anymore. And so it is a significant action that the council does take today. I would ask my partner from CRA, Lillian Berkemheim, if you would like to add anything about our agencies, our clearances, how we're going to do this.
I think one of the things that's been remarkable about this is putting together a street standards committee that has stretched beyond any one department and combines departments to meet on a regular basis to talk about each project that is coming forward. So a particular development that's moving forward within the downtown area does not go to city planning or CRA or DOT or BOE and get different answers. They all come to one place, they get one unified answer, and the project moves forward. So it's been a great team as we've moved forward and looked at developments, and it's a team that we hope to be able to move forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, and I think this is a model for us to create this type of policy, and I congratulate you again. In those Friday afternoon meetings, my staff will tell me that they were go on for a while, but they were well worth it, and here we are implementing this. And I think what we'll see is more consistency in the types of public infrastructure in downtown that will go a long way towards the revitalization that we've seen in this area. So thanks to all of you, and thanks to Councilwoman Jan Perry and her staff, and my staff who have been part of this all along. But certainly you and your teams did most of the work, and we appreciate that, and we thank you for all your time on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reyes, Chair of the Plum Committee.
Well, I rise and want to congratulate my colleagues, Councilman Huizar and Councilman Perry, and the staff for their hard work. When we talk about the center of the city and we talk about a regional traffic flow, we talk about a city traffic flow, we talk about a local community traffic flow, and now we're talking about how we address the easing of these pressures and looking at the future. So as properties go through transactions, as new buildings come in for redesign, these standards will be set and hopefully set the pattern for a movement that does take us away from our dependency on the vehicle, a car culture, and actually talk about these districts that speak about our health, having people walk more, get to these transit-oriented districts, and all the while capturing the historic value of this great city. So I thank you for that. I know it's been a long process, but as we go through these cycles of development and urban rethinking of our center is very crucial. So I appreciate this great opportunity, because these will link eventually out into the first ring of neighborhoods as we go through the Central City North, the specific plan along the Royal and the cornfields. This will hopefully fit in a very functional way that talk about relief from our congestion. So thank you. I know it's a tough task, but when you have two colleagues who are trained in planning, understand these urban development notions, it does help to work in synchronicity. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Perry.
I also just wanted to say very quickly thank you to everyone at the table for all of the hard work that you have done for a very, very long time in updating the standards for downtown to make it a true downtown and to accommodate the changes that have taken place over the last 10 years to make downtown much more open and recognizing the importance of a burgeoning residential community and how it has transformed this community and the, as Mr. Ray has called, the outer rings, because it'll have a domino effect, I think. I also want to thank, and I know this will make him laugh, but Mr. Fisher, who religiously devoted himself to attending and participating. It's been a true collaboration. Thank you very much.
Mr. Labange.
Mr. Fisher is your Mr. Fisher, right? Yeah, so it's Mr. Fisher. That's great when staff helps out there. Just a question, Emily. I know when they redid the Central Library and the expansion of the Tom Bradley Wing, that was the first time I remember that they ever changed any street standard. John Wellborn was a big fighter on stopping the widening of 5th. Bob Horry, the city engineer, when they redid Figueroa, they did bump outs at 8th and Figueroa, and then at 5th at Figueroa, and other spots were the first transformation. And then the concept, and I don't know if it was a CRA concept or a Calvin Hamilton concept, but the skywalks were transformed. There was a big push. Does anyone recall that at all? Has anybody been on a skywalk downtown at all? I mean, there's some people like the skywalks, but how do the skywalks work on this? How are we integrating the skywalks?
Integrating. I don't believe that we're integrating the skywalks. They exist. They were a combination of Cal Hamilton and Ed Helfeld that brought them to the city from Minneapolis.
I would say the one thing we're doing, this is creating connections to them, so you actually will have the street light connecting to these pedestrian ways.
Right, good, very good. And the other question here, how are you relating, Alan, to the freeways? Because some freeways absolutely have the roadways that come in, 9th comes right off, et cetera, et cetera.
There's certain streets that are dedicated towards achieving that access to the freeways.
So say it again, you can speak directly to the chair so you can hear you.
Yeah, there's certain roadways that were classified as automobile-oriented to direct to the freeway, so we didn't forget the automobiles along with the pedestrians and the buses.
But you got to figure that out, because I don't think we're going to turn the traffic out, but we're going to...
We did. We did a whole traffic analysis of this new plan with these new standards, and we looked at 1,800 acres in downtown L.A., and as a result of these new standards that really are complete streets, they accommodate pedestrians, bicycles where possible, automobiles, transit, buses, connections to the subway. We also studied those links, as Mr. Rifkin was saying, going into the freeway.
And you're familiar with MTA's doing on the Downtown Regional Connector?
Yes.
What's going on and what the PUD is?
Yes.
Yeah.
We met with the Downtown Regional Connector folks a couple of times during the preparation of the Downtown Regional Connector, so this project fits with that proposal as well.
And just on that, my feeling as a former MTA board member is if that with the goal line, which now has a new name, that it would go to connect to the blue line either down Central or Alameda. So if you're going to Long Beach and trying to get to Pasadena, instead of having to go through 7th and Fig, maybe we could have a faster connection that would come up in that area. I hope you'll look at that aspect of the east side of using some of those streets to carry and design where transit should go. So it's exciting to see everybody's effort in here. And Ms. Perry, thank you for your leadership as always there. Mr. Weezer, the champion. And the only question I ask you, either one, to go to Bordeaux, France, one of our sister cities where they have a light rail system, that absolutely where the rail line and the step into the car is at grade. You don't need any platforms. And it's run without wires, but with a magnetic strip, and it's very popular. To see there's any concepts, because I think as we move forward, any infrastructure in the sky will be an important aspect of what you do. I know it must be exciting personally to all you professionals here, so good luck in your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. That's our last speaker. So with that, let's go ahead and prepare the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Thank you all for your patience. Congratulations, and that is our last item. Next order of business.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Let's go and post and refer those.
The desk is clear.
Any announcements, colleagues? We don't have any announcements. Mr. Labange? The great grilled cheese invitational, Mr.
It's a wonderful weekend to take a hike. Everything is wonderful. The mustard is beautiful in the Santa Monica's. Anywhere in Griffith Park, enjoy a hike. Baldwin Hills, Kenneth Hahn State Park, too, looks just as pretty.
And I know in Mr. Reyes' district, in Council District 1, there's the annual Grilled Cheese Invitational. And if you're a fan of grilled cheese sandwiches, you can go there and taste all sorts of grilled cheese sandwiches. It's sponsored by Kraft. There are literally hundreds of different chefs who come with the most incredible grilled cheese sandwiches in the Cornfield State Park right there, where Mr. Reyes has done a great job. So congratulations. Mr. Reyes?
Yes, a lot of events. The Bicycle Coalition is doing a great job. They're handing out free lights for bicyclists. It's a good way to get people to get out of the car, commemorate Earth Day. It's a great way to get out into knowing our neighborhoods. So I want to thank the LA County Bicycle Coalition and Carescent's Labor Center for their support in this. And again, all the cleanups that will be occurring throughout the city, my district as well, and invite the public to attend all these events. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other announcements or adjourning motions? Do we have any adjourning motions? If I can ask everybody to please rise in council chambers. For adjourning motions, I'd like to recognize Mr. Weston.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. On Monday, April 13th, the Los Angeles Police Department lost one of their own. Her name was Janine Manji. She was with the Wilshire Gang Impact. She was a Wilshire Gang Impact detective. She graduated from UCLA. She was born and raised in Sacramento. She graduated from UCLA. She became a police officer in 1995. And when she passed her probation period, she went from North Hollywood to Wilshire, where she got involved with the gang enforcement detail. She was a team leader, and they said that she was a little petite woman, but that she was ferocious, and she would lead the officers into the dark alleys and streets and made arrests. In 2005, she was promoted to the rank of detective. She found out that she had cancer, and for 7 years she battled it, and she will be sorely missed, and her services will be this Thursday. If anyone is interested, please call 213-485-3586 for further information. That's Janine Manji, and I would request that all members...
Yes, absolutely. We'll put all members on that. Mr. Labange?
Manji was a fighter, talking to Captain Davis at Wilshire. She didn't let everyone know of her illness, but she kept working hard and contributed to Wilshire, and she succumbed to cancer. God rest her soul.
Thank you. Any other adjourning motions, colleagues? If not, just as a reminder, the joint committee of Ms. Perry and Mr. Parks will begin in about 10 minutes upstairs. Okay, we will... 10 minutes, Energy and Environment, Budget, and Finance Committee. Great. Thank you all very much. Mr. Clerk, if you will most kindly call the roll. And this meeting of the Los Angeles City Council is adjourned. Faith and strength.